Start recording in three, two, and one. All right, and welcome back to the Reserve Squad Midweek Show. I'm here, Spin, and I don't have anything quippy to say this week, so I'll just say, and I'm joined by my co-host Rex. So Rex, good to see you again.
Yeah, good to be back, Ben. We'll get into it, but weird weekend. A lot of controversy, a lot of issues with VAR that we have to get into, which stinks because we don't want like VAR. We don't want the refs deciding games. And like nothing's consistent, but we'll get into that. Ugh.
We will, and I mean it was a Super Bowl week for us as the theme here, and really for our sport, it's just kind of getting started because Liverpool and Everton played on Monday, then yes, Champions League returned yesterday. Spurs also played, but I mostly focused on the Bayern and PSG game, to be honest, and then
Me too.
Champions League plays again today, but it might be overshadowed by a different game, which we might get into a little bit. So
That's right.
it's just getting started for us. It's been a fun week,
Oh yeah, yeah. I love when Champions League comes back.
and I mean you kind of mentioned it for the story of the week. I guess I'll do a different thing, and I'll say I thought it was maybe a little bit of a revenge Saturday theme, and so Chelsea and West Ham, there's going to be a lot of, we'll talk to this, but there's going to be a lot of gripe about a certain call that wasn't made. And Chelsea are going to feel like, they were cheated out of maybe 3 points. And all I can think about is in the first game, I want to say back in September, Maxwell Cornet basically scored either a goal to tie or a goal to maybe go ahead. And it was chalked off by a pretty bad, I thought it was an unfair decision by VAR. So this is one of those karma coming back to it benefited you the first time and it didn't this time. Arsenal and Brentford, you kind of mentioned that with the VAR, but I think it was revenge for Brentford because they were smashed in the first leg. And then Leicester and Spurs, it was kind of the same story where I think in that first meeting that was when Son came on and like the second half and in 13 minutes had a hat trick. And Leicester maybe remember that too because they kind of poured it on Spurs in this one. And Eddie Howe returned to his old stopping ground, and it wasn't maybe the best homecoming for him. So I kind of went with that theme.
Ooh, I like that. Yeah, I'm jumping on the VAR and other issues that we had in Premier League. Obviously, like the Chelsea one looked pretty bad, but it looked like a handball in the box. And then I guess it's sounding like in the Arsenal game, the game tying goal for Brentford, it looks like it might have been offside. But the crazy thing is that Lee Mason in the VAR booth apparently forgot to draw the offsides lines.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a lot going on in this. They were checking multiple people for offsides. I think they were even checking a possible foul in the build-up. But he forgot to draw the lines, and I don't know. I guess people like drew the lines in, and it looks like Brentford was off, and the goal shouldn't have counted. But I just don't. I don't understand how like that's his job, and he doesn't remember to draw the lines. And aren't there a lot of people in the booth? Like no one was like, "Hey, um, Lee Mason, you need to draw the lines." I thought there was like three or four guys in the VAR like booth, but I don't know. We'll get in, and obviously there were other calls too. And I don't know, Ben. For me, it's starting, and it's. I think I can say safely that you feel the same way. It's like every week we have at least one VAR or ref issue,
We
and
do. Yep.
a lot of these are affecting the game, and maybe teams are getting points when they shouldn't. I don't really feel like Arsenal were lucky to get the draw, so I don't necessarily feel like it's that terrible because Brentford could have scored like a couple goals, they could have lost. So like I'll take a point, but still, I know like Arteta's furious. He said something like, "I won't be happy unless they give us the 2 points," and we know they're not going to do that. But yeah, I don't know. I think they're going to stay with what they got now until the summer, and then hopefully in the summer I don't know. They'll kind of like figure out maybe tweak it a little bit. I don't know, but it sucks that we have these issues all the time with VAR, and it's just kind of changing the game a little bit, and people aren't happy with it.
Well, you got a little taste for anyone that watched, the PSG Bayern game yesterday, or I guess maybe in the World Cup. We got a taste of probably what's coming on, or what's coming in the future, which is basically going to be automatic offsides being called. And I don't know if
Mm.
people are going to like that either. I saw someone saying that there's been a lot of issues in Serie A where it's like this is absolutely ridiculous, where they are basically they are drawing it when someone is running forward, and they are drawing it wherever the actual like hand is, and that's not
Yeah.
exact. That's really stupid.
Hmm.
I think they have to actually change the offsides rule eventually. Is what we're going to get at. It wasn't just the Brentford and Arsenal game though, where there are some issues, and we are
Yeah.
we're going to talk about that. So all right. It's actually a pretty good way to lead off. We will start with Arsenal and Brentford. This one does end 1-1, goals from Trossard and Ivan Toney. As far as the Arsenal lineup, really not a whole lot changed. It's been relatively a consistent lineup. I think that's part of the reason why you guys have been having a pretty good run of form, but also it might be starting to get to the legs, which we might get to.
Yeah.
And then
Mhm.
the interesting thing with Brentford, and we kind of talked about this last week, is Thomas Frank really does like to switch it up. So he went with a 4-3-3. He played with three attackers versus, I guess, Southampton last week. And he went back to a 3-5-2, kind of played with wingbacks in this game. And, basically the idea really was to defend first. And we saw a lot of that. We saw Bremer and Tony almost, being back in Arsenal's box in some respects. And so, uh, I mean, the stats were basically kind for both, but really, I thought I'd put down basically all like the big chances, and I've got Brentford here. And so you mentioned Arsenal may be lucky. I do kind of agree. I mean, it started off really early where it looks like Bremer even scored, and the ref basically Saliba is lucky here because I think the ref blows an early whistle for a foul on it might be Gabriel and Tony, or it might be Saliba. And really, I just think one of the defender is going to the ground. I think he slips. The goal is chopped off. But even after that, Brentford posed a danger where Tony got the ball, had a really good early cross that Rico Henry was able to run onto, and he just kind of made a mess of it. And then there was another
Yeah.
chance where Tony basically won the ball off Party, that passed it out wide to Mbeumo, and Mbeumo squared it back to Tony, and Tony hit the crossbar. And
Mhm.
again, I'm going to point out
Should have scored
Saliba.
that one.
I'm gonna point out
Mm.
Saliba because first
Yeah.
he leaves Brembo, and then to go after Tony. Tony drops him forward, so he leaves. That's why Mbremo's open. And then after Mbremo gets the ball, Saliba still doesn't follow Tony's run, and that's the reason why Tony is completely free. I want to say 6 yards from the goal. And the only thing I can think of is Zinchenko is there as well, so Tony did have to go high, and that's the reason maybe why he missed it. But again, it was one of those where Arsenal were almost on their heels, for the most part, at least in that first half.
Yeah, and Tony for me was my man of the match. Just watching watching him and how physical he is against defenders. I mean, it's part of the reason why Sleep struggled. I mean, he was bound to wake up the next day like feeling like he played like in an NFL football game because Tony's just so big and physical, and he just like takes the will out of you. And I think was it? I think you said that what was Sleep like 0 for 9 in aerial duels,
I think so. I
and
think
that
that was a stat.
I mean it's just like it's bound to be like guarding Tony just beats you down. You get so like banged up, elbows, in your ribs, and he's just so big and he doesn't stop. So I mean, I don't. I think Saliba's been really good, and he definitely had a bad game. But I mean, it's hard. It's hard against Tony, and just I was fascinated with just watching him, and like just every time he's physical, he's gonna challenge everything. So like, yeah, it's not Saliba, it's not great. But maybe it'll help him because like we got potentially Holland coming up, and he's gonna be physical like Tony. So
I think that's a
I
good
don't
point.
know. He's young still, and this was first season with Premier League. So I don't know. Maybe that can help him. But Tony, man, I would not want to be guarding him. I would not want to be a center back guarding him all game because it was just he's devastating.
He really we'll definitely get to him. I mean, but to kind of stick, I guess, on him a little bit, I don't really see a flaw in his game, to be honest. He can drop deep, he can play make. He doesn't really make a bad decision on the ball. He's got some cleverness to him with some clever feet, so he can get by a player if he needs to. And you mentioned he's so physically dominant. To be honest, that was if anything else, that was a tryout for any kind of top four team that is looking for a striker. There's no reason to not at least try for him. And I know Brentford fans don't want to hear that, but anyways, um, let's get to the goal because a couple things happened here that were different. The first started off it's Trussard that scored, and Trussard didn't start this game. And
Yeah,
so, Martinelli didn't necessarily have his best game. One thing I kind of noticed was every single time it seemed like he was trying to cut inside and almost play like a second striker. When so many times he's been trying to play, he's been offering a little bit more of that width. And another thing too, Brentford weren't really giving him that space to run in behind. Like
yeah,
it was Rico Henry or Mads Razov. It might have been Mads Razov. He was doing pretty good for the most part of staying back. And so Trussard comes on and scores, and it's maybe the one time where Mads was kind of caught sleeping, but this really happens from a free kick. Uh, so Arsenal get a free kick. I think they get the ball to Saka. Saka basically has Ben White doing an overlap, and that's what gets the defender to get off Saka. Saka then squares it to Odegaard, and then immediately Saka runs. And I think it's Jensen who's supposed to be guarding him, and Jensen just has no shot. I think Saka possibly fouls Jensen, but no one really looked at that, so I don't think that's worth really saying. Saka just does
yeah.
really well to make that run really quickly, and then to immediately square it across goal, where I think that maybe even surprised Brentford a little bit. And lo and behold, there was Trossard at the back post, completely unmarked. And the only thing I can think of is Mads Roslov is looking at Xhaka running in front of him. And so if he doesn't mark, if he does go back to mark Trossard running behind him, I think Xhaka's in front of him, and Xhaka probably gets the goal too. So it was one of those where the early ball by Saka put Brentford in a really hard spot.
Yeah, yeah, good point. And as like Rorsloff, he played really well, but
I agree.
in that instance, like he has to make a quick decision, and if you hesitate for like half a second in the Premier League, the guy's going to be by you, and he's going to be getting the ball to his feet. So yeah, it was tough, but Trossard, pretty good cameo. I wouldn't be surprised if he started today against City. But Ben, I don't know, like just because we're touching on Trossard, when I looked at like the benches for both teams, I kind of was envious of Brentford's like attacking players on the bench because
Hmm.
of injuries and things like that. Arsenal literally the only attacking players are Vieira and Trossard, while Brentford have Shada, Visa, Lewis Potter, Damsgaard. I was kind of envious of that. I was like, there's no one to change the attack for Arsenal except for two guys, and they're good, but they're not necessarily like fast guys like Visa or Shada.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, we'll definitely get to that. I'm gonna ask you maybe a question about Nketiah, because there were some times where Nketiah actually did look good, but I think they're trying to play him like he's Gabriel Jesus, and he's not. Even I was watching it with Andrew, and he said the same thing that I was kind of thinking of. He if anything, you think of him as basically almost like a poacher, and that's not derogatory.
Yeah,
That just means he's someone that's supposed to be in the box,
yeah,
as maybe a target man or just makes a clever run here and there. And too often I saw him going out wide. So I think we'll get to that. Let's get to the tying goal, because this also comes from a free kick. I think, but the free kick happened because Saliba is so scared of Tony. He's holding him. And so, yeah, the ball is kind of whipped in. I think the problem here is Trossard basically allows Tony to go unmarked, and what happens is Brentford are blocking off Zinchenko and I think Gabriel, and it's almost like a pick play, and they call it offsides because Gabriel is basically picking. I think it's no, not Gabriel. Pinnock is picking Gabriel, and so Pinnock is quote unquote offsides. And I think the reason why they spent like 5 minutes to look at this is because they couldn't to tell whether or not Pinnock was interfering with the play or not, because Pinnock is
mm,
technically offsides, even though the ball doesn't go to him. And I agree with you. It was weird they didn't look at really because in real time I told Andrew I think if anything it's Norgard that's offsides. I don't want to necessarily come off as a smart aleck, but I said this in real time. And the reason why you think about that is it's the last action that happens before the goal. So why wouldn't you look at that first?
yeah,
And so, yeah, I just kind of the ball is. I mean, it's just chaos. And what happens here is Brentford win 3 heads in a row. So that's kind of the negative if you're an Arsenal fan. Really, with the biggest one being Pinnock, who just flies over everyone, and then it goes to Norgard, and Norgard does a really good job to just kind of float a ball across goal. Now Norgard, another player maybe tries to go for goal himself, and I think Ramsdale actually does good to get out when he does. And so
mm,
it's an incredible flick by Norgard, and just unfortunately for you guys, he is offsides when this happens, and then Yeah, it's easy for Tony. But I mean, for Arsenal's sake, if you don't even if you don't look at the offsides, Tony gets the ball completely free, unmarked on a free kick. And you get lucky, frankly, that his first time or first shot basically just kind of goes to no one and deflects, and that's when the ball kind of goes in the air. But that was the
Yeah.
problem. That's where your problem started.
Yeah, how did Andrew was Andrew like upset in real time, or was he kind of like, there's so much going on, we can't really and also like you briefly mentioned it, like when they were showing the VAR on TV, they were kind of showing like the later parts when we kind of wanted to look at some of the like earlier parts.
Mhm.
So you couldn't really like see everything in the build-up because they're only showing like the later half of the play. So I like for me, I was just really confused. I wasn't necessarily like angry at first. I was just really confused. I didn't really know what was going on, and I did want to see the lines because like that would clear things up. But like what was Andrew feeling like? Was he like immediately angry, or was
Andrew
he
was.
confused as well?
Well,
He
because
was.
we had a really cool setup where we were able to so we had a big screen kind of in the middle, and he also has, I guess, because he likes kind of some I don't know, sometimes playing video games when, Riley is watching a TV or whatever. He had a
Mhm,
second TV. So we were able to watch the Spurs game, as well,
mhm.
and basically it happened at the same time where and we'll get to that too. There was an offsides, called against Harvey Barnes on the 4th goal. And this was chopped off before they actually get another 4th goal that Harvey Barnes also scored. Um,
Ooh.
but Andrew was furious because he was like, "Wait a second, that was offsides," and he saw basically the same kind of angle with I think it was Pennick.
Mhm.
And I think the problem is they figured he wasn't interfering with the play, and yeah, I don't think they looked at Norgard, and I think they spent
Yeah,
too much time looking at the one angle, and not both. And so
yeah. No,
yeah,
I feel the same way. Yep. Yeah, yeah. Just confusion. Oh, and how do you? I don't know how you forget that stuff. Am I wrong in thinking that it's more than just one guy in the VAR booth, or is it just one guy?
that I can't say. They
Because
mentioned the name Lee Mason, but you
Lee
imagine
Mason,
there are eyes with him, but I really can't
yeah.
say.
Because I'm
Um,
just thinking about like when they showed like the VAR booth in the World Cup, there are like 4 or 5 refs back there at
oh, that's a
least,
good
all
call.
looking at monitors. But
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's not like that here in the Premier League. I don't know. But you would think someone maybe in a headset or something would be like, "Hey, Lee Mason, draw the lines," or look at this guy too earlier in the play. I don't know. It just doesn't make sense.
And I sometimes kind of get caught kind of making this mistake as well because I'll just say like VAR as like, oh, video review, and it's just a guy behind.
Yeah.
It's still human error that can unfortunately take a part. And so yeah,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
is
It's still
what
just the guy looking at
that
the video.
is
Yeah.
that is what we saw. I mean, the stats were Brentford did edge Arsenal in the XG, and I mentioned how most of the chances that I at least remembered, I jotted down. I did think the best chances did come to Brentford. I mean, Arsenal had 23 shots and 7 on target, and
Yeah.
that those numbers are actually pretty good. But I can't really recall Raya having to make a really big save. I think
Yeah. Same here.
most of the things were to him, to the most part. But the
Yeah,
7 on
and a
target
lot of the
is a good number.
yeah, it's not bad. But a lot of the shots too were like literally ballooned into like the second level of the
Hmm.
stadium.
Yeah.
At least like 4, I feel like weren't even close. You could put like 3 goals on top of each other and it would still miss by a ton. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, 7's pretty good, but I don't know what the percentage is on target out of 23. It's probably I don't know. It's probably not that great, but yeah, I don't know. It's kind of more the same where it's like the intent is there, but the finishing product is just lacking at times. And they've only scored what I think 1 goal in 3 games. So I don't know. Think that maybe they're starting to get a little tired. We talked about the attacking options aren't really there to make subs for the most part. I mean, maybe Trossard starts and gives Martinelli a rest, but and Keita's going to have to play. There's no one else.
See, I would like to. I think I mentioned it last week. I would maybe like to see Trossard come on and play as a striker.
Mhm.
Because again, it's another game where Nketiah kind of struggled, I thought, to get involved in the game, and because he's not getting the ball, he's starting to try to come to it a little bit more. You saw him kind of go out wide to try to get the ball. You saw him dropping deep to get the ball, and
Mhm.
while that looks good, at least that looks like like it's supposed to be a good thing because oh maybe he's like getting involved in the attack and getting some touches, but what he's doing is he's leaving that area, and that's maybe forcing Saka and Martinelli, who are not really your strikers, to maybe try to run into the center of the field, kind of in the box themselves,
Yeah,
and so you kind of lose
yeah,
your shape that way. So I mean, Trossard can basically do that, but he'll make some clever runs in the box where that maybe Nketiah wouldn't think about. And we've seen that with Brighton. But anyways, I do want to. So did I mention all the stats? I mean, Brentford were 9 shots and only 2 on target, and that kind of gets to. They did have a bunch of times where Tony just couldn't get stuff on goal. That was maybe the one negative to him. I mean, possession
yeah.
was 69% Arsenal and 31% Brentford, but again, that was okay because Brentford kind of play that way. Brentford set up to play without the ball and just kind of defend deep, and
Oh yeah.
the times when they were able to go ahead, they did look dangerous. So I don't think they care about that. And
Mhm.
Arsenal, Arsenal did have some pretty good passing numbers. 510 for 86%, and Brentford is still that's still low in the 177 with 66%.
Yeah,
Um,
that is pretty low.
and you mentioned Tony. Tony probably was player of the game. You mentioned the 12 of 13 for aerial duels. I think he was 17 of 20 for total duels. So he was an absolute monster. But I put in a little note to talk about Thomas Partey because he was 8 of 10, 4 dribbles, 5 key passes, and 100 touches with 90% accuracy. Partey every game to me is immense. And there is maybe a rumor that he won't be able to go today, and if that's the case, I do worry a little bit. It's just a rumor, but
Yeah.
that'll be something to see. 'Cause I wanna see personally, I wanna see Rodri v. Partey, go head to head
Mhm.
versus each other.
Yeah, I like that. What is it, a rib thing still, I guess?
I don't
It's
know.
still bothering him?
I just I that it could have been just gossip and no one, because it didn't necessarily come from a source, it just started kind of trending, but I don't know.
Ooh.
Sometimes those actually do pan out. Um
Yeah,
One thing I wanna say is, I mean, it really was incredible how much difference a few months makes, where, Gabriel Jesus did play that game, but another thing is maybe Norgard, didn't play in that first meeting, and I don't necessarily know if that alone was it, but I remember that first game waking up. I actually woke up late. I think I woke up, like, 20 minutes after the game had started, and it was already 3-0 or 2-0. And it basically Brentford didn't have a kick on the ball, versus that Arsenal team in that first game, and so it was wild how and to be honest, regardless of the numbers or Arsenal having the ball a lot, Brentford looked an equal side, at least when they went forward. And so, yeah, it was stunning how much it's changed, and it's not just to be fair, it wasn't like Arsenal had a bad game because Brentford have been doing this to a lot of teams, since that October run, when I think they last lost, they've managed to beat or not lose to Man City, Spurs, and Liverpool. Where
mhm.
no, I guess a lot of people are having fun with Liverpool, but I mean City's in there, and they really have been doing this to pretty much any team that they played. To be fair to them,
Yeah, yeah, I mean, they haven't I don't know how many games off the top of my head, but they haven't lost in a long time, and Thomas Frank is a really good manager. I mean, really good. And
he
you
is.
talked about, like, they set up with a back three, so they have the ability to, like, change formation. And the back three, the three guys, Yair Pinnick and um who else?
Me.
I can't remember, but yeah, me. Gosh, he's the biggest one of them all. They're all big, and so I think maybe that's part of the reason why too. And KT was like going out wide because he was like, I'm not going to go up against these all three of these big center backs.
I
But
think you're
yeah,
right.
they're a good team, and they have the ability to play different formations and to get points and wins against like the big clubs. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy too. Like they've a potential shot at Europe, which would be insane.
Mhm.
And that would be awesome to see how they, who they picked up in the summer to kind of like beef up their bench if that did happen. But yeah, it's crazy to think about that. And in the beginning of the season, honestly, I thought it was going to be, like the second year slump that
We
we
were
see a
both
lot of
worried
those
about
newly
that.
promoted teams.
Right.
Yeah, I think Jeremy was a little bit too, and also they lost Ericsson. But I mean, this team is hard to beat. So I think a point for Arsenal isn't bad. And you mentioned it too, like, Tony kind of rarely missed that like one. It should have been a goal. He hit the crossbar. So like even with the offsides drama, Arsenal pretty lucky to get a point, and I don't think it's a bad point in the end because Brentford's so good and they're so hard to beat. At least
I don't
you're
think
not
it's
you're not going to beat them.
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad point either. And for some reason that wasn't really shared, at least by the NBC crew. But you still have that 6 point
Mm,
lead, and you still have your fate with you versus Man City. And it's not like
yeah,
you. Well, we'll see what happens with Party, but it's not like you necessarily had injuries that game. And again, it was. I mean, you were able to get 7 shots at least on target. So, and you did dominate for the most part. So there were some positives to take. That Trussard coming on, I think, was a positive. But another thing too
yeah,
is we saw, and I think this is the first time we've seen this. At least I personally hadn't seen this, where he took off Shaka and brought on Fabio Vieira. Most of the times when we've seen Fabio Vieira come on, he's either played in Saka's position, kind of further more right wing, or he's kind of played in Odegaard's position. He's just kind of swapped, player for player. And this time he played both, and Fabio Vieira on the left. I actually did think that worked out. At least
yeah,
I I thought, he had a couple pretty nice touches. It didn't necessarily lead to anything, but I liked the wrinkle.
yeah. Me too. Yeah, I like that too. It's just a little thing that they can use hopefully going forward.
And we kind of alluded it to a little bit, but I mean, it does feel to me, it kind of does feel like they are missing Jesus a little bit. And eh, you can maybe say that this was eventually going to happen, but I think you've mentioned how it's possible he's maybe set to return in a month or so. So
Mhm. Yeah, I think he's coming back to I think he came back to training last week maybe, but not like full contact training. I think he's just like out on the field, jogging and running and just, passing and receiving with the ball. So, yeah, it's looking pretty good. I think he's kind of ahead of his original timeline. So, I mean, we could really use him. And the worrisome thing too is like he's gonna have to probably hit the ground running, kind of like some of these like Chelsea players that they just got. He doesn't have a lot of time to shake off the cobwebs because
true.
this title race is tight, and if Nketiah goes through like a rough patch, Jesus he could be rushed in, and I mean when someone's not fully healthy and they're rushed back, that's never a good thing for like potential injuries again. So I don't know. Arteta's got to be very careful, I would say. But it's good. It's good a sign that Jesus is kind of ahead of the schedule, the comeback schedule at least.
And I don't necessarily want to say that that he Nketiah had a bad game per se.
Yeah,
It was just it just felt like he was maybe playing he was asked to play a certain way that doesn't necessarily fit his best game. There was a couple times where I thought he had a really good turn on a center back, and he got the shot off, and he either maybe it forced a save, or if they maybe a couple of times where it actually he put it wide. But
yeah,
he's actually quite good with his back to goal, and he can make quick turns. Just the issue is trying to get him the ball. But speak on Brentford, we've talked a little bit about Tony. It's not just Tony. That partnership with him and Embremo is honestly special. Now I don't, and
yeah,
it's maybe perfect that they play for a side like Brentford because and not a possession side because both seem actually fine to defend without the ball. That whole team works without the ball. Tony and Embremo in spots were defending in their entire close to their box. They work really hard without the ball, which you don't always see with your star attackers.
true.
And when Brentford do get the ball and when they are able to advance with it in numbers, both are very good at making runs. And frankly, when they get in the penalty area or final third, I think both are pretty good at making decisions. Sometimes
Yeah,
Mbemo just doesn't have the best finish on him. But
yeah, yeah.
that
That's true.
partnership is really really good.
Yeah, and it's like like you said, it's perfect for Brentford's like setup too, because Tony's kind of like the big physical guy, and Mbuma's like the really quick, shifty, fast runner. So
Yeah.
they set up perfectly together, and they set up perfectly in a counter attack too. So like you said, they can only have like less than 200 passes, and 35% of the possession, and still be very threatening on the counter attack.
Yep. And we kind of mentioned the run of form that Brentford are on, and one thing I kind of noticed is I remember back in I want to say maybe October, basically before this like run of form happened. We were very worried about them on set pieces, conceding corner kicks. I remember that being like a really, really big theme, and
Yeah,
maybe one of the reasons why they've kind of gone on this run of form is I can't remember the last time they conceded on it and on a corner kick, so I think they fixed that somehow. I don't really know
Yeah.
what's changed, but that's at least changed numbers wise. So, and that's
Yeah, they
another.
were terrible at that in the beginning. It was a bunch of goals conceded on
Mhm.
corners.
And
I think
so,
they poached a guy, a special teams guy, I think.
oh, interesting.
I
Well,
thought I thought Jeremy said
Well,
that,
maybe
but
they got Pennick back in the lineup. I remember he wasn't necessarily fit to start the season. So maybe that's been kind of it as well. I can't really say. I mean, they almost not only did they defend corners pretty well in this game, they almost scored. Ben Mee had a header that I think Ramsdale dove, but it was basically deflected off a Arsenal player. That if that's on target, maybe that goes in.
yeah.
And
Yeah,
so
true.
all right, we'll move on to Man City and Aston Villa. Nothing happened in this game. No, Man City looked really good for a change. It was not the same Man City team that we saw versus Spurs. I guess you can maybe kind of expect that. I mean, goals from Rodri, Ilkay Gundogan, Riyad Mahrez, and Ali Watkins was able to kind of make it somewhat respectable, but not really. Interesting thing was no Holland. Riyad Mahrez taking the PK was a little different, but the thing I want to get to is the lineup that Pep went with, because all the graphics basically got this wrong. No one knew what in the world they were going to play. And basically, it's Grealish and Mahrez as the wingbacks. And so if Pep tries to play this way versus Arsenal, I think that actually benefits you guys because I don't see Grealish and Mahrez running back to do any kind of defensive work. I mean, Grealish has maybe put in a little bit more effort in the last. I think he actually played that way versus for Spurs. But the main thing was he took out Rico Lewis. He didn't try that stuff anymore, and put Bernardo Silva next to Rodri. And, at sometimes Bernardo Silva almost didn't have a position. Sometimes he was playing that fullback. Sometimes he was playing center back. He was going forward at times. Him and Gundogan were kind of switching off. So that worked pretty well. And then we saw Kevin De Bruyne back to his usual best.
Yeah.
No more goofy stuff from Pep. And yeah, I mean, I don't think it surprised to see a different Man City team.
Yeah, yeah, I agree, and I don't know, I think it kind of like, Roger got up the field and scored too, so it kind of benefited him, and, Laporte back, Diaz back, yeah, yeah, I don't know, I liked it, I liked that yeah, like you said, this was very, like, no-nonsense approach, from Pep, and things need to change because they weren't playing their best, and, they have the talent to do that, to play better, so, yeah, it was, I hate to say it, but it was good to see.
And another
Back
thing,
to back
and
to City.
Another thing too was Ruben Diaz and Laporte back there. No more
Yeah.
Kanji came on in the second half, but the game was already over. I think
Mhm.
I think we're maybe going to see more of that as well. And so yeah, with Villa, maybe the big change was no Tyrone Mings. Something happened to him, and what's crazy is Aston Villa did tie Man City in the first meeting. It was 1-1, and I think, it was because City dominated that game as well, but I remember Tyrone Mings doing a pretty good job on Holland, in that
Mhm.
game, and Chambers
Yeah.
looked terrified. Chambers had a mistake. He, like, headed the ball backwards, and it led to their second goal. Chambers lit had n it was clueless, in this game, unfortunately, and, yeah, it was another game where I didn't think Kamara and Douglas Luiz had their best game as well. Neither did Jacob Ramsey. Jacob Ramsey ended up fouling Grealish for a PK. Um, I'm not gonna touch on every single goal, but I will touch on the first one because it's a header from Rodri on a corner kick, but it's how City get the corner kick that I think is showed a different City side. I mean, it comes from Ruben Diaz basically having a long pass to Grealish, and this is something we haven't seen Akanji do. And so you see immediately Ruben Diaz kind of affecting City and making them better. But Grealish does well to take the ball down, and he actually runs down the touchline and tries to get a cross off with his left foot. And we saw this a couple of times. It wasn't the first time. And so I don't know if Pep told him to stop cutting in and trying to get it on his right foot. And the reason why they get the corner kick is because of that. And so, good for Grealish there. Good for Grealish trying to keep some width because he had to, there was no width in the side other than him on that side. And then the second goal, Gunnigan again. To me, I think he just completely changes how the City team plays. Now, Kevin De Bruyne is the one that's going to pick out those passes out of nowhere, but Gundogan is going to make these clever runs in a box or uh, disguised runs where you just look and out of nowhere, Gunnigan's always open, and it just doesn't make sense. But when you watch on replay what he's always doing, it's so at least in this game or in this goal. Uh, Grealish, not Grealish, this okay, Kevin De Bruyne plays a perfect pass to Haaland. He's able to basically split the center backs. Henry Martinez is trying to run out to him. This is when Kellen Chambers just completely freaks out and then heads the ball away. Haaland gets the ball
Mhm.
again, and unfortunately, he showed some playmaking ability. He looked like a winger in some respects. He like faked it on his left foot and then cut inside on his right and squared a really good pass across goal. And, lo and behold, Gunnigan is just, again, completely unmarked, and you don't understand why. And when you look back on the replay, he's running behind the play, and he fakes like he's gonna run inside and then completely, runs back post. And no one again, everyone was so focused on Holland, what Holland's gonna do, and this is where I think Douglas Luiz messes up. He's not marking the runner, he's kind of just watching the ball, and it's an easy goal, for him. But Gunnigan also scored on a breakaway. And he also forced a Martinez save in that second, in that first half, in the first like 20 minutes, and just Gunnigan to me makes them a different team. Now I don't know if you can do Gunnigan and Bernardo Silva and Kevin De Bruyne all in the same side, when you need to not play this weird formation when you need to do a 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1 because that maybe cuts you up a little bit. So we'll see what he does today. Uh, but
Yeah, that's gonna
but
be interesting.
at least here it worked and it worked really well.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Gundogan too. He's 32, but he's not playing like he's 32. He's playing a lot younger. Maybe that's just the experience coming in, and a little freedom in his role at times too. But he can kind of do everything. He's fun to watch.
Yeah, Pep doesn't deserve him. We've talked about that before. How Pep sometimes tries to coach attacking play out of him, and Gunnigan is a guy that kind of like Kevin De Bruyne in that respect as well. They can go off script, as you say, and just anytime they do go off script, that's when City look their best, in my opinion. I mean, the shots were 9 on target, were for 17 shots. This could have been worse. I mean, Martinez did make a couple saves. Again, you still have the issue where Holland's the only one that's really able to make a run ahead. And so what they were trying to do is they were trying to make Emir Martinez a sweeper keeper. And it worked in some respects. There was actually a foul on him where Man City got a goal, but it was called off for a foul. But the reason why they got the second goal is because Chambers did not know what Martinez was doing. If he leaves the ball, I think Martinez can actually get to that. But really,
Hmm. Yeah.
this was not a contest. I mean, the passes was 558 for City, 90% accuracy. Villa with 33% possession. Villa, it was the second half when I was really paying attention. Villa were not pressing. They were not doing anything to try to win the ball back. Uh, Watkins and Bailey didn't really see a lot of the ball. Watkins did score, to be fair to him, but just, you didn't really see any kind of idea to try to turn City over. It was more, we'll sit in a 4-4-2 block, and try to just hope that City turns it over themselves, and they didn't. I mean, Rodri with
Yeah.
116 touches, 4 key passes,
Wow.
90% accuracy, and 5-5 area duels, and Rodri
Wow.
looked incredible in this game.
That's a ton of touches. That's insane. Yeah, and a lot of the damage was done all the damage for City was done in the first half. So, the the Watkins goal is kind of a little bit of a consolation. But to be fair to City, they kind of probably took their foot off the gas a little bit, which is to be expected. So yeah, at least Villa got a consolation goal, but I attribute it more to like City kind of letting off the gas a little bit, which is just speaks to how good City is really.
And so, I don't know, that's kind of talking about that. I mean, what do you maybe expect to see today?
Ben, I honestly have no idea. I mean, I know the team from Arsenal is probably going to be the same. Maybe Trossard instead of Martinelli, but
Mhm.
this Man City team they're just hard. They're hard to predict. Pep does do like a decent amount of tinkering, so I honestly don't know who's going to play, and I have no idea what formation they're going to play either. And there's Holland had to be subbed in this game, so maybe Holland's dealing with a little muscular issue. He
Yeah.
he might not play. But I think Alvarez is a handful for defenders as well. So I don't know. I honestly don't know. I have no idea. You could see they played well this weekend with the 3-2-4-1. So maybe Pep will stick with that. But I have no idea in regards to what City's going to do. Like I said, Arsenal are pretty predictable. You see the usual lineup, and like I said, maybe Trossard will play instead of Martinelli, but that's it. And for City, I have no idea. I'd probably go with, since they played so well, they'll probably do the 3-2-4-1 again, maybe.
Mhm.
But like you said, maybe they're worried about Saka and Martinelli slash Trossard out wide without Grealish and Mars really defending. So maybe Pep will change stuff. I don't know, but I'd hate to be Arteta trying to figure out how City are going to play and what they're going to, what their style is going to be, because they can do a lot of different things, and or at least with Pep try a lot of different things. So you really don't know what you're going to get.
I mean, so I'm not gonna be necessarily the one to give Arteta advice, but I would try to whatever I can. I would try to mark Rodri out of the game. Now they still have a way to move the ball around, but Rodri is the focal point when City play and move the ball. Now Rodri can also drop deep, and that can be kind of annoying. But at least when he's in the middle, Rodri is the one guy that they have with size. So any kind of like ball that's kind of hit over the top. This is why missing party would be big. I don't think Jorginho would be
Mhm.
able to do this. Um, I do think I mentioned how he played Bernardo Silva basically in like that Rico Lewis role, and it was
Yeah,
almost the same way. I mentioned how Grealish was technically the wing back, but in some respects, when City were defending, Bernardo Silva was running back, and it was almost playing their left fullback. And so maybe we do actually see this again, and that'll be the idea. Bernardo Silva will run back to try to be fullback, and it'll force Grealish to come back. But the interesting thing here is if you do that, you can't do what worked really good on Saka in that first game, which was basically a 4-2-3-1,
yeah,
where Nathan Ake was the left back, and Nathan Ake had a pretty good job, in my opinion, of stopping Saka 1v1. Um,
yeah. Ake was big in that game. So, yeah, forget about Ake too. So, I honestly I have no idea what they're gonna do.
Well, I remember so this is again, this I don't wanna necessarily just make it about Liverpool, but, in 2018, I think it was at Anfield, and Pep went in with this crazy, crazy strategy of, basically not playing with high fullbacks, so he didn't allow any kind of space to go in behind him, and so when you look at how Arsenal like to play with their 2 wide players, that is the danger. And so it was almost like in that game, Pep played. He set up to basically play in a block in that respect, and it worked.
Yeah,
Liverpool really struggled that game. I think it ended 0-0. And so you play someone like Ake and Kyle Walker. Maybe you tell them, hey, don't actually run up. We don't need you to necessarily play and attack. Just don't necessarily allow that. So I'd be interested if we see that.
yeah. Me too. Gosh, I don't know. Yeah, everything. You know what sucks though is this game is on Peacock, and
Is it
we
really?
have like yeah, and we have soccer. So like I can't just record it on TV because it's on freaking Peacock. So I don't even think I'm gonna be able to watch it then. I don't know.
Well, you'll
I
be
mean, I
able
might have to
to.
like.
I won't text you then. You'll be able to like watch
Oh,
it
yeah.
immediately after. You'll be able to play
Oh,
back.
on Peacock.
Yeah,
Oh, thank God. Okay, cool. That's the only saving grace. Yeah.
I didn't realize that. That's insane.
Yeah, last night before I went to bed, I was like, let me hit record, and then I looked for it, and it wasn't on there. It's like Law and Order. Ugh.
Oh my god, that is so crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like I mean, Champions League is going to be happening too, but I mean, Chelsea
Mhm.
Dortmund is that's interesting, but that's also going to be on streaming as well. It's not going to be
Yeah.
on TV. So here's a chance to kind of dominate that. So
Wait,
that's
it
that's
was on TV
that's
yesterday. It
crazy.
was on CB. Yeah, it was on the main CBS feed.
Oh,
Champions League yesterday.
I didn't even realize that. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I was shocked because
Well, that's good to know that
it was
maybe they'll have
yeah.
Liverpool, Real Madrid, next week.
They might. Yeah, they might actually. And it
And
was like, the same crew. I like watching
oh, yeah,
their
they're
like
funny.
pregame stuff, like Michael Richards and stuff. Yeah.
Well, like I do like Richards kind of adds the laughs. Jamie
Mhm.
Carragher can sometimes be a goofball too, but I always like hearing what Thierry Henry has to say, especially with yesterday with PSG. It seemed like he had a little bit more of an idea of how the club works in the inside. That was pretty good. Um,
Definitely, definitely.
yeah.
Yeah, and he's a huge like Mbappe guy too.
Well, I think anyone that likes the sport should be. But
Yeah,
anyways, well,
especially
we'll
for French.
we'll
Yeah,
do
yeah.
we'll do a Champions League thing later. He came on yesterday and looked really good.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, one last thing to maybe touch on this is Foden did kind of return, and I think what's kind of funny is, to be honest, I've kind of read Grealish, a little bit, and I thought it was maybe his best game, and I don't know if Foden returning kind of, popped him up, but I did think Grealish was actually relatively good, in this game, and so, we'll be interesting to see what Pep does with Foden back.
Yeah, yeah, true. He what was I think Foden had illness, right? So just like missed a game or two
Yeah,
from illness,
he missed
so
the
he
Spurs
should be
game.
fine.
Mhm.
Yeah, Mrs. Spurs. So he should be fine. Yeah.
Well, he's also it's not just the illness. He'd been kind of in and out of the rotation.
That's
Basically
true.
going back post World Cup. There've been some rumblings, but and
Hmm.
then for Villa, Ollie Watkins scores. I think the weird thing is they sold Ings, and maybe they had the idea to move this John Duran guy kind of in. He's a young Colombian, and I thought the game obviously was too big for him, but he did come on and actually had a volley from, like, pretty good distance that hit every part of the crossbar, so maybe they see
Hmm.
this guy in training and they're like, "We can sell Ings and kind of move on to him," because Ollie Watkins to me works better when he's a wide player working with a striker,
Hmm.
and so, I don't think him and Bailey together, is the best idea for him, but anyways, um we'll move on to the other Manchester team, Man United versus Leeds, who had the fun task of playing this team twice in 4 days. The first one was 2-2. Is that right? Yeah. Leeds get the first goal with Nato. It was nice for Leeds to just fire Jesse Marsch before he even got a chance to play this Man United team without Casemiro. And Nato gets a goal in like the first like 5 minutes, and then
Yeah.
they actually had a 2 goal lead because Varane had an own goal. And then, couple things changed. Ten Hag kind of made some changes. He brought on Jadon Sancho and Pelestri, and Rashford got a goal I think from a header to tie it, and then Sancho was kind of the hero, which we hadn't seen in a while. But I do think the no Casemiro here was felt because I thought Fred struggled in possession. So this was a gettable side for Leeds, and the fact that you only got a point I think was bad. And then in the second game, yeah, I think it was even worse, because
Yeah.
again, I thought that Leeds were actually relatively the better team, um, at least until Ten Hag made those changes in the second half. But what was happening is Bamford wasn't really able to get into the game. I thought Jack Harrison as the 10 was not working at all. I thought he kept losing the ball. Um, and, what were they? What were the? I mean, the XG was actually Leeds 1.8 to Man United 1.1. Leeds had 16 shots and 6 on target versus Man United's 11 and 5. And so I thought Leeds actually, because Somerville and Nanto were looking good, and just the kind of issue was, McKennie and Adams were able to start in this game, and I thought both of them looked pretty good. Just the issue was, not being able to get anything to count, and then unfortunately Ten Hag again made some changes in the second half. So what he did,
Yeah, there were some great changes.
brought on Garnacho, and he started Shaw and hit center back with like Maguire,
Yeah.
and he took off Malacia, put Shaw into left back, and Shaw actually is the one that has the cross that gets Rashford the first goal. And then what he did is he took off Sancho and brought Garnacho on. And what this did is he kept Wanghorst on, and Wanghorst gets the assist. And so the problem I thought was you can't have Wanghorst just kind of being the vocal man with someone like Sancho who's not going to make a run behind, and you only had Rashford on the other end. And it was actually relatively easy to play United. And with that change, you had Garnacho that was able to make a run as well. And you saw Wanghorst actually kind of show up and all of a sudden work again. So that may be something to for Ten Hag to think about going forward.
Yeah, Garnacho was just full of energy too. Maybe I don't know. Maybe he can start, or maybe Ten Hag's like, hey, we got a good option on the bench, and the subs were great. He made them at the right time, I think too. I don't know, it just kind of shows how like good Ten Hag is as well. And I mean, playing leads like back to back, basically, only a few days in between. Like it's always hard to play like the same team, twice in a week,
Yep.
because like the managers are kind of and the players are like used to, each other already after like the first game. So it's always hard to like that second game is always hard to get a win over the other team because they kind of know what to expect. And Ten Hag's subs kind of changed that I think and just blitzed leads real quick.
Yeah, and I mean, because we sometimes see this in like cup competitions. I can't really recall seeing this in the league, and I guess this was maybe one of the makeup games from when the Queen passed. I don't know why it would be
Maybe.
this close back to back,
Hmm.
but Ten Hag did kind of make this interesting because he played different teams. He brought on Palestri in that first game as one of his sub changes. He actually started Garnacho in that first game, and what's funny is Garnacho had a chance to actually score early in that game and wasn't able to take it. And that's he took him off for Sancho, and Sancho actually ended up working. So it was almost the reverse that worked here. But and so you saw just kind of Ten Hag kind of being open to kind of trying new things. But another thing too is he played an entirely different back line. So he started Maguire and Luke Shaw at center back, and so again with no Casemiro in there as well, I thought Man United were gettable, and yeah, Leeds kind of to me looked like a team that were playing without a coach, and unfortunately, that is where they are right now.
Yeah. Yeah, they got to get that figured out quick too.
I mean, for the Leeds side, what did you think of Weston McKennie and Adams kind of playing together?
I like them. I think they're pretty good together. I really want to see Aronson in there too, kind of get like the American trio. But yeah, I think they're going to be good. But I just don't know how much it really helps that defense, and that's what we're really worried about with Leeds.
For real,
Because I mean, Vober isn't. I think Vober's an upgrade from what they had, but he's not like an amazing center back either. So I think McKinney helps for sure, and I really thought I liked him and Adams together. Obviously, they're used to playing with each other for USA, but I don't know, man. I just worry about the defense. I think obviously they're gonna have to score too. Maybe Bamford coming back will help. But the defense is what I'm really worried about, and I think Vober's like a little bit of an upgrade, but yeah, I don't know. We talked about maybe they should have gotten like maybe another defender instead of McKennie. Maybe that could have helped out more. But I don't know. McKinney looked good, so I don't know. I think that's a good signing, but I think if they get relegated, it's probably going to be because of their defense, or maybe lack of like like a striker because Bamford can't get healthy. But
Luke
I don't know.
Ayling,
We'll see.
Luke Ayling, and Firpo, I think are probably the two worst fullbacks in the entire league,
Yeah,
together. And when Firpo only just returned, playing again, so he's actually had a time to maybe try to work something on the training ground, and he still looks kind of lost.
mm,
And when he's not playing, is it Robin? It's Patrick Strucker, Strike something
yeah.
Strucker.
Strick got hurt, I think, last game, right?
And well, to me, he's not a fullback either, and I don't necessarily think he's necessarily that great as well. Though, to be fair, Leeds, at least under Marsh, it almost seemed like he had fixed something in the back line. But again, well, maybe that was the change. Strucker being injured and Firpo being in there instead. Because United
Yeah,
were able to once Ten Hag made those changes, it looked like United were going to score every time they went forward, and unfortunately, they basically did. Um,
yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, and so, well, it'll be interesting because a certain team also lost a manager, and a certain team has already hired a certain manager. And I kind of texted it in the group, so I'll kind of say it here. I think that certain team that just hired Jesse Marsh is going to finish above Leeds. So
Ooh.
we'll see if that pans out. That could just be an absolute terrible take, though.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm starting to think that Marsh isn't that good of a coach, but I don't know. Who knows? I don't know. Just it leaves a bad taste in my mouth that like he got fired from Red Bull, and they kind of did better without him. And then if he gets fired from Leeds and Leeds do better without him, I don't know. I'm kind of like, oh, I don't know if Marsh is going to work out.
We'll see.
But we'll see. I mean, he did.
We'll see.
He kept Leeds up last year, so maybe that's what Southampton are thinking for this year. Just keep us up.
Because he's joining a better team, in my opinion. That's kind of the main thing. And Southampton, again, we'll get to their game. They need some direction because what they were doing with 10 men, with the 10 men side was shambolic. But anyways, let's go on to because this game was fun. The Spurs and Leicester City. This was a bit of a surprise, to be honest.
Yeah,
And this one
crazy.
ends is it 4-1? Yeah, 4-1 with
Yeah,
Leicester
four
getting the
one.
first goal. And they get the first goal with Betancourt, and unfortunately for them, that's going to be the last time they get to play with him for a little bit. I think he actually did his ACL, which
Ugh.
is a huge loss
Yeah,
to say the least. Um,
definitely.
yeah, and I mean to be honest, one thing that I kind of forgot about when we were doing the Spurs and Man City game last week is towards the end of that game, Christian Romero got a red card, and so he wasn't able to play this game. And so the back line was Tanganga, Dyer, and Ben Davies. And man, was that a terrible back line. And then we got to see Pedro Porro get his first start. Emerson Royal got to for all of his good work for his Man City, that was his reward. And Pedro Porro didn't have a good game either. No,
No,
you
he
know,
was.
debut,
Yeah, not
debut,
good.
but I mean, and
Yeah, it was bad.
everything else for Tottenham was about the same. And so when you look at how bad they were defensively, this is an issue, I think.
Yeah,
And then
yeah,
also
definitely.
Fraser Foster over Lloris. I think Lloris is out for a little bit.
Oh, is that okay? Yeah, that was surprising too.
Mhm.
Kind of like, whoa, why is he? But
And then
and
with
then, oh yeah, Champions League too. No, Uri's also yesterday.
Yep. And then Spurs ended up, I think, was it 1-0? Spurs lost to
Yeah,
AC Milan yesterday. And
yeah. I think it was a early or a first half AC Milan goal, and then just couldn't do much. I don't think. I think it was like kind of the usual where it's like you shut down Son, he doesn't do much, and it's just like Kane. And if you can control Kane, then it's not going to be a problem.
Well, that's why losing Betancourt is such a big issue because I think they played Oliver Skip and was it Assar yesterday is kind of like the two holders. And what I think of them
Yeah.
is they are holders. Those people are basically defensive holders where they kind of stay in place and they're supposed to be a bit of a defensive cover in front, but they're not going to give you ball progression. And that's what Betancourt is actually pretty good at getting the ball, finding Kane or finding slipping a ball through to an attacker upfield. Yeah, losing him is gonna matter.
Yeah.
With Leicester, a bit of a I mean, Rodgers has maybe found a little something here, by playing Iheanacho, more, by, moving Madison in almost like a 10 spot kind of underneath Iheanacho, where he's gonna be able to find some pockets of space. And he's got Tete and Barnes that are able to kind of go wide, and this is as good of a Leicester side as we've looked in the last couple of weeks. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden, the defense looks
Definitely.
better as well. Suter and FaZe. Wout FaZe got a early yellow card, challenging Harry Kane. And what's crazy is that didn't stop his aggression. And frankly, they end up scoring on one of these goals because he has a really good slide challenge that it basically not only does it stop Kane from getting the ball goes to Iheanacho, and they basically score on this. And
Mhm.
then Christensen's coming in as a new signing, and I think he's been pretty good for them.
Yeah, I mean they've shot up the table. They got 2 wins and a draw out of their last three, and they scored 36 goals, and some of the teams around them, like Nottingham Forest, is level with them on points, and Nottingham Forest has only scored 17 goals. So they're starting to put in the goals, and yeah,
Yeah,
maybe a little bit of stability at the center back positions with Suter and Faust came in the summer. So yeah, I think Rogers is starting to turn this team around, and it's kind of I honestly I'm a little surprised because I didn't think he could do it. Um,
I didn't either.
but yeah, it seems like they got a pretty good attack going, and Iheanacho might be their main guy because he's the last 2 games he's been really good goals, assists. So maybe they can rely on him, and they don't have to play him, all the time because they do have Vardy off the bench, which he's still a little bit of a threat. But Tete looks a good signing too. Yeah, I'm really impressed with Rogers because they were pretty bad. They were pretty bad. They were rock bottom for a little bit in the beginning of the year, weren't they?
They were at least, conceding. I think they had the worst, goal record, conceding, like, for defense, and they were I think you're right, they were basically last in points. I remember
Yeah, I thought for a
we kept,
couple
like, making,
weeks.
jokes about Ward, their keeper, and,
Yeah,
the last couple of weeks, he doesn't necessarily been their problem, and so when you have a little
yeah.
stability and they're doing this without Ndidi as well, um,
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
it's, a lot of this is a lot of this is different. Vardy has been missing the last couple of weeks as well, or at least he has, I can't remember really remember him featuring, and so for the longest time you worried about what they would do without Vardy, and so many times uh, in the first part of the season. I remember saying that so he that's when he had Vardy. But it would be a team with just one striker and basically five midfielders, and it would basically be Tielemans, Madison, Dewsbury Hall, and I guess Barnes. And it was very almost everyone was ball to feet. And you had Madison or you had Vardy just kind of running ahead of everyone. And it just seemed if that run to Vardy wasn't on, you didn't really see what Leicester were doing with the ball. And this is entirely different. Not only is Iheanacho able to make different runs himself, but he's just very good on the ball. He can make a men miss as well. He did a feint or a drag back that made it a defender just go to the ground. I think it was I think it was Tanganga. Basically, he retired Tanganga on this play. This was when Leicester ended up scoring, and it was chalked off because of offsides. But um, it's just yeah, we've talked about him. I want to say like almost every single week. Like why isn't Iheanacho playing? And the more I see this, if because Vardy is back now, he was able to come on in the second half. If Rogers goes back to Vardy, I'll get on that again. So we'll see if Rogers has maybe learned his lesson because for the last couple weeks, I don't see any reason to move on from that.
Yeah, no, not at all. Yeah, Rodgers would be. I mean, he would be stupid to take Iheanacho out. At least ride the hot hand as long as you can. If he keeps scoring and getting assists, I would keep starting him. And now they do have Vardy to give Iheanacho a rest because it looks like Iheanacho's like their main guy now. So like if he does need to be protected and he needs a game off or he needs to come off, early in the game like this one, you have Vardy to come on for him. I think it's a perfect situation, and I think it's kind of like the torch being passed because for a long time it was Iheanacho behind Vardy, and now I think it's Iheanacho and Vardy behind him, which is the way it's supposed to be. Vardy's super old.
Well, and
Iheanacho's a younger guy. He's waited his turn, I think.
for the most part of the season, it's been Daka. If Vardy wasn't able to go, Daka was being played over
True.
Iheanacho.
That's true too. And
So
Daka hasn't been bad, but I think Iheanacho's better.
yeah, I agree. And to kind of touch, I don't want to necessarily touch on every single goal here, but there was a little bit of a theme when Leicester were able to win the ball off Spurs, and basically a lot of this came from Spurs being bad on the ball themselves, either trying to pass from the back or just sloppy giveaways. There's a sloppy giveaway by Ben Davies trying to pass the ball to Kane. That's when White Faze is able to win the slide tackle, and I think that's basically when Madison gets his goal. But there's another one where basically. I think it's Perisic. Perisic just trying to maybe try to find a ball to Kane, but it's really, really lazy. The ball goes to I think it's Castagna, and without hesitation, Castagna just hits a ball over the top for Iheanacho. I think this is where they get the third goal. And the reason why it's a problem is on both of these goals, the back three, the center back pairing, they're not even with each other. Either Eric Dyer is ahead of the play, or he's really far back. But you don't have so the center back, and I think a lot of the reason is Eric Dyer cannot play in a high line. And so what they were trying to do is they were trying to get the wing backs kind of high up to kind of play in the attack a little bit more, because that's been an issue for them too. They haven't been able to really get their wing backs in the attack, and I think that's the reason why they brought Pedro Pereira. But the problem is when they were giving the ball away, it was actually really easy for Ian Asher to square up against those center backs, and those center backs were terrified when he had the ball.
Yeah, true.
And frankly, that's the reason why I think it's a problem because other than Romero coming back into the squad, I don't know what you do to change that.
Hmm. Yeah, true. Hmm.
And I guess that's pretty much it. I mean, Leicester 15 shots and 7 on target. Spurs did have 11 shots and 4 on target. Spurs actually edged them in possession, which was surprising. But again, and the XG actually was relatively even, 1.6 to 1.3. But really, the main thing was just whenever Spurs were bad on the ball and the giveaways led to goals.
Yeah, yeah. They were ruthless, Leicester.
And it's kind of yeah, we kind of mentioned that, but yeah, I mean, I remember back in October where we talked about there was a worse defense in the league, and it was it was Leicester, and in this game, the defense that was horrible was the other team. They were
Yeah,
actually pretty good, and then
yeah.
another we talked about Iheanacho, but another thing to say is one Harvey Barnes is starting to score for them a little bit more, I think, again, maybe Ian Ash is able to make those runs where Harvey Barnes can kind of, play in a little bit more space, but Madison's returned. They haven't had Madison since, like, that November game. So,
Yeah.
Madison coming back and playing in basically a number 10 role, he's not being forced to go out wide. I think that's led to some of this as well.
Yeah, that's a good call, actually. Yeah, I think so too.
And I am worried about Spurs missing Betancourt. But another thing I need to think about was was this a little Alabama effect where playing Man City a week ago just kind of took the legs out of them, and so because it just looked an entirely different team. No,
It really did,
no
yeah.
Romero, and I guess no Emerson Royal. But is that really it? Like how did Ben Davies and Eric Dyer blank Holland?
Yeah, yeah, it is bizarre. I think you're right though. I think maybe just the high of beating City, and it was a tough game, kind of just mentally took it out of them, and maybe a little leggy too from it. Yeah, I mean that's the only like it's the only way I can explain it because I mean they didn't have Conte again, but they didn't have him for the City game either.
Yeah, and I mean, another thing too is in that second half, Emerson Royal and David Sanchez came in, and they didn't necessarily look better. So I do think it's a problem. Frankly, that back line I think is a reason why if they do miss top four, it'll be that. So
Yeah,
yeah, well, I mean, maybe that's the reason we've done shows where uh you, we talked about how sometimes Spurs aren't able to get their wingbacks involved in their attack as much as maybe you would like. Maybe that's the reason why Conte, when he plays, doesn't do that. He knows that that back line is vulnerable no matter what. So you play defensive first for that reason.
yeah. Actually, I think you're right because well, in the beginning of the year we were kind of talking about Spurs, and we were like, look, we don't like their defenders, but they're getting clean sheets and they're like staying organized. So, as soon as that organization kind of breaks down a little bit, or you have to make changes to that back line, they're still not that great defenders per se. Like at least compared to like other teams in the top four. So they're kind of slow at times too. So yeah, I'm concerned about that back line as well. But I don't know. It's really weird because, like you said, sometimes Conte can really like organize that back line and that defense. Um, and it looked that way during the City game. You thought they'd come out here against a weaker team and would do it again, and it was like completely flipped on its head.
Yep. And so we'll move on to Chelsea and West Ham. And there's not a lot happened at least in the game, but there's a lot to still chat about. A goal from Yao Felix, and then Emerson was able to get one for West Ham. And the reason why that's kind of funny is Emerson is it Palmieri? Emerson was
Yeah.
a former Chelsea player, and I think he was part of that fire sale of like 12 players to bring in Lukaku. And so it's kind of funny how he came back to kind of haunt them a little bit. Um, Chelsea lined up in a 4-2-3-1, so it was this is a little different than what we've seen recently. So he played Ruben Loftus-Cheek next to Enzo Fernandez. Kind of played him in a pivot. We saw in the other game Enzo was basically the number six by himself, so this allowed him to maybe go up a little bit more. We saw James, Thiago Silva, Batticelli, and Mark Cucurella as the left back, and then we saw Madueke, Felix, Mudryk as kind of like the front three, and then with like Havertz a little bit ahead. And I'm gonna get to this. There are a lot of reasons for to be excited about this, but there was one specific reason why this did not work, and so we will get to that. The lineup news was no Mason Mount starting, which was interesting, and Felix returning. Felix returns and they score.
Yeah.
Um, and then for West Ham lined up in basically a 3-4-2-1, and maybe the reason why this turned out to be just such a dire game for West Ham is Paqueta got injured basically, I don't know, 5-6 minutes into the game, and that forced Moyes to basically bring on Thomas Suchek, and it was that Suchek Rice pairing again. And West Ham could not keep the ball to save their lives. This was I think I saw a stat when I was watching. I fell asleep watching this in real time, to be honest. But in the second half or in the first half, in that first 20 minutes, uh, mm, West Ham had the ball for like 14% of the possession. It
Yeah.
was domination,
Sounds about right.
and not only
It
was it
really was.
not only was it domination, Chelsea were getting behind their back line for fun. They basically scored 3 or 4 goals, and just everyone was offsides. Um, they were able to finally get the first one, and it comes from an Enzo Fernandez ball that's floated over the top that Felix is able to make a really good run. Mudryk runs the ball off Bowen though, and I think he fouls him. I was kind of shocked that they didn't really look at this. And so when I talked about how Chelsea don't really have a lot of grape, this will be one of the reasons. But there's another one too.
Right.
Yeah, so that Chelsea, when they're able to win the ball high up, and Mudryk floats a really good ball that Felix just kind of fools the back line, is able to score. And again, he had already put one in the net before this. Felix did look pretty good for them. And then after that, Havertz was also able to make a run in behind, and he was only offsides by I don't know, a kneecap. It was close. Um, but after that, West Ham kind of changed how they were playing. Maybe Moyes basically told them, "Guys, we're not going to do anything in this game, so sit back as much as possible," because they were playing a high line in the beginning, and that kind of stopped. And once Chelsea weren't able to make those runs in behind, a lot of that attacking flair stopped. And we'll get to the tying goal, and this is where I think it's one of those few times where I think Potter was maybe out tacticked. And so it's really it just comes from a header from Bowen that's kind of flicked on. It's a cross by Sufal. It doesn't look like this should really be anything, but Bowen does a really good job to flick the header back post, and then no one covers Emerson back post. But the issue is how really well, it's how West Ham get the ball. So I mean, it's Chelsea have the ball. It's really easy. They're trying to play from the back. West Ham try to press them high. Cucurella can't deal with it, and Sopley gives the ball away. And then he runs away from Sioux Fall, and that's what makes the cross really easy. But it's another issue too, because this is what when you play that 4-2-3-1 kind of formation, uh, when you versus wingbacks versus a team playing wingbacks, one thing that can happen is the fullback doesn't know what to do when the wingback goes forward. And so in this game, you saw Sufal was able to get the cross off completely free unmarked because Mudryk isn't able to mark him. And uh, Reece James has Sarid Ben Rama ahead of him. So Reece James has to mark him. And so because Madueke doesn't run back to mark Emerson, he's a completely free man. And so when you need that, you need your wide players to sometimes do something defensively, and they didn't.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
And
That's the only way you can like deal with the 2v1.
right.
If you are, yeah, you got to have wide player come back and help.
And I mean, so they Madueke and Mudryk did have some kind of promise at least in that first half. No, they were taken. I think Mudryk was taken off for like Mount, and Madueke was taken off for like Ziyech in the second half. And
Yeah.
it is one of those times where just a lost in concentration, and yeah, you were done by about like you said a 2v1. It did look like West Ham had pinched it because Souček did score after Kepper kind of spilled a rebound from Declan Rice having a
Yeah.
header, but that was ruled offsides. I think I think that's the right call. But
Yeah.
then the controversy happened because Souček basically gets away with a handball. He's going to ground and he knows what he's doing. He's using his elbow to stop a shot from I think it's Conor Gallagher. Chelsea fans are definitely upset at this, and they are right to be. But I think
Yeah.
what happens is before this that's a problematic too, because Chilwell comes on in the second half and he sets Mount up on a platter to basically square up Hall across goal for I think Ziyech to have a tap in, and uh, instead Mount basically plays the cross blind and it goes behind everyone. Chelsea is still able to kind of get the ball, but the chance is really gone. And then Gallagher just does a shot that just like a Hail Mary kind of shot, and he gets lucky with the I guess Suchek going down. But
Yeah.
the reason why I kind of wanted to bring up the karma thing is again, Chelsea got away with this versus West Ham when Cornet had a bit of a they had a VAR ruling to go their way. So yeah, you live by VAR, you die by VAR.
Yeah, I guess it somehow manages to maybe even out during the course of a season. But yeah, I mean that I would be upset with that too if I was a Chelsea fan because
Yeah,
I don't know. It seemed like clear and obvious that it was a handball in the box.
it did,
So like if we at home can figure these things out, why can't the refs or why can't VAR?
and they looked at it. That's another thing
Hmm.
why they
Yeah,
they
I
they
know.
just assumed it's not a clear and obvious error, and
There was
it definitely is.
that one camera angle looked like it might have hit his knee instead of his hand. That's like that's the only thing I can think of is that they just saw that one angle where it looked like it might have hit his knee instead. But again, like the VAR looks at it from different angles, so they're not just looking at it from one angle. So I don't know. I wish Premier League would make the refs like come out after the game and explain their decisions, like why they decided this and
Ooh.
why they. Yeah, wouldn't that be good? Because I mean, I don't think they'll ever do it, but yeah, I'd like to know like what was going on. Why did you call? Why did you not call a PK?
I would like that too. Because you hear they'll issue a statement. It's never they'll issue like a press statement being like, "Yeah, we messed this up, and basically we'll take the next guy off VAR or off the next week or so." Because they
Mhm.
did that after the Arsenal game.
Yeah,
They're like, "Yeah,
yeah,
Lee Mason or whoever it was is not going to do the Liverpool Everton game," which I was like,
mhm.
"Cool." I
Yeah.
don't want you
Get
to
him out of
I
here.
don't want you to do that
No,
again
yeah.
after that mistake.
No, that
Um,
was a bad one. Yeah.
I mean, what did you think of, basically, uh, what did you think so I mentioned last week, I didn't think Mason Mount and Havertz basically worked together. What did you think of Havertz and Felix playing together?
I think it was a little bit better, but it still looks like everyone is still getting used to playing with each other, which
Yeah.
we thought that might happen with all the new signings. It takes a while, but I think I like the combo of Felix and Havertz better. Um, Felix just he looked pretty good. He was kind of like the danger man for Chelsea all game, and he got the goal too. So I think if I was Potter, I'd continue to roll with that because they did look pretty good, and I
Hmm.
don't think they were necessarily the problem. It was more like Madueke and Mudryk got wide offensive more the problem. But I don't know. I still think Havertz is probably not going to be the starter after the summer. I think they'll bring in like a proper striker that scores goals. But Havertz is hard done by a lot of the times, and I mean he does have his moments where he plays pretty well. But I think mainly it was just like the João Felix show for Chelsea. He was pretty fun to watch, honestly.
I mean, I'm going to, you kind of, teed me up a little bit here. I was gonna ask it later on, but I think I'll ask it now. They do have Aubameyang still. Now,
Mhm.
Potter doesn't I think he's not included in the Champions League squad. Potter just doesn't like
Mhm.
him. But
Yeah.
I don't understand well, you also have, that Fofana guy. I think you need to play with a striker. I don't think Havertz or Felix are a striker. So too often what I saw is both were kind of dropping deep to try to go for the ball. Both want the ball played to their feet. Both want to
Mhm.
find pockets of space where the center backs aren't. And it's fine when you have one player doing that. When you have both, there's no one ahead. And so that's forcing
Yeah.
your wide players to basically kind of take someone on and kind of do it all themselves, or you got to get a cross off. So Chelsea had all this possession, 72%, but they had 12 shots, and that was stunning to me because I think they had 4 shots on target and 12 shots total. I think they were offsides 4 times where they basically scored a goal. And so when they weren't able to get behind, they weren't able to do anything. And what's funny is Havertz and Felix were actually good to make a run in behind, but that was versus a high line.
Yeah.
When it came to Chelsea having the ball in the final third, and that's what happens when you have all this possession, you can't really play off the counter. It looked like they were clueless on what to do.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree. And then I don't know, it just seemed like like Mudryk and Madueke. Yeah, I just wanted a little bit more of them, like a little bit more like running into space from them. And both of them got the hook and got subbed out. So I don't know. It's I don't know. It's difficult to like explain why Potter doesn't like get a hold of this because you can't have like two guys dropping back like you said. You can't have Havertz and Felix like dropping back because yeah, like you said, there's going to be a void in the top of the field. Like you're not going to have like a striker to pass to.
So yeah, once they stopped, what like, West Ham weren't having to deal with this running behind them, and Chelsea basically just kind of controlled all this possession, and it was relatively calm for the West back center backs. But I think another issue was Mark Cucurella. I don't think is working out here. Uh, um,
Yeah,
and Potter should know how to play Cucurella because we didn't necessarily see this side of him, but I don't think he's offering much of an overlap run. I think Chilwell is a better option for them, to be honest. Now,
me
what's
too. Yeah,
crazy is I think we've said this before. I think Cucurella works a whole lot better had he gone to City, um, because of the way, especially after you see the way that they're trying to play Rico Lewis at that left box spot. He can also kind of cut in and kind of play as like that midi midfielder. But you're seeing that. You're seeing Cucurella kind of play inverted, and he's kind of playing more in midfield, and he's not offering. Mudrick gets the ball on the wing, and he's by himself.
Yeah, and he's got to do it all by himself.
Yeah. And so, that's that. I guess that's pretty much it. I mean, the subs kind of surprised me a little bit as well because he brought on Mason Mount and Ziyech. Um, it, it almost worked. I mean, Mount had a chance to square it to Ziyech, but again, I don't understand why David Fafana didn't at least get a shot here.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, because I agree. I think he would offer, a little bit more like running in behind and than Havertz would. I don't know. Maybe Potter liked Havertz dropping back. Maybe that's what he was told to do.
Hmm.
But I don't know. Why not just change things up a little bit and throw on like a quick guy that's willing to make runs in behind and just change things up a little bit.
Or just be a presence in the box.
Be a target guy. Yeah,
It's so weird how Havertz doesn't. He's got such a big body. I don't get why he doesn't like doing that. But,
yeah,
anyways, um, I guess that's. I mean, I guess one last thing to kind of say is that is the one criticism I think you could have of Potter. He's been given a whole team. You don't expect them all to know how to play with each other. You kind of mentioned that as well. But at Brighton, if there was an issue, he was never able to find a number nine. He always kind of struggled with that, and so you're starting to maybe see that here as well. So we'll see. And then with West Ham, I
yeah.
mean, do you have anything to say about them? It's a good point. I think
Yeah,
both of us.
yeah, definitely. It's a good point, but I don't know, just looking like at injuries, Paqueta got subbed off, and then Aguerd got hurt and got subbed off too. And Aguerd like has been pretty
He
good since
has.
he's been back from injury in the beginning of the year, and Paqueta's a good player too. So I don't, yeah, it's a good point, but losing those two guys, I don't know how bad the injuries are, but I mean, West Ham's not in a great place already, and you're losing two really good players to injury. So it really depends on how bad those injuries are. Like they could be in a bad spot because they didn't really play that well without Aguerd, and then the defense started to get a little better when he came back. So I don't know. And then Suchek and Rice don't necessarily work together that great anymore either. So I think they're going to miss Paqueta too. It just depends on how long they're going to be out for.
I think that's spot on. If I was worried about, I didn't think about Aguerd, but Paqueta definitely, yeah,
Mhm.
because
Yeah,
they
Paqueta
looked
for sure.
they looked well, they looked pretty good. I thought first Newcastle, at least in possession a little bit more. I mean,
Yeah, and that was a good point too.
it's not even like Chelsea were pressing and forcing them to turn it over. They were kicking it long, and they didn't want to have the ball, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and so we'll move on to Liverpool and Everton. This is maybe a little bit more where I have a smile on my face instead of the normal scowl I've had in the past because this was a much needed and I want to say surprising result after seeing what Everton were able to do to Arsenal. This one ends 2-0 with a goal from Salah and Gakpo. Now, it was close to maybe being a little different. We'll get to that. Um, Liverpool went with Old Faithful, 4-3-3 with Trent, Matip, Gomez, and Robertson. Uh, the lineup news was Henderson and Fabinho were back in the midfield. Stefan Bajcetic, this 18-year-old, was basically played in the Thiago spot. There was no Thiago. He has a hip problem apparently. So we'll see how that works out because before this Bacic guy existed, this would have been a heart attack waiting to happen, a
Yeah.
disaster waiting to happen.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
I'm gonna get to a take I have later in the game. That just made me think they don't need Tiago. As crazy as that is, now that's a wrong opinion. But Bacic was amazing in this game, and then the front
Yeah,
line was
he's been
Salah,
really good.
Gakpo, and Nunez, and this was the first time where it actually worked somewhat. And it's funny that the front line actually works when Diego Jota and Firmino are finally back healthy and on the bench. Um, because we saw this versus Wolves, the same front three, and it did not work at all. He was playing Nunez in the middle and Gakpo kind of on the left side. And I think if that front three is going to work, it's got to be this way. Gakpo actually was offering something a little bit in the middle. He dropping back in the midfield when he was getting the ball on the turn. He's got such a big body, and he's like goofy and lanky. But he doesn't really have, acceleration to, like, take plays on the touchline or beat a defender in a tight space, but I think what he can do is he can turn on the ball, and he's got a stride where he can glide past midfielders in the middle and maybe try to feed players in front of him, and with him dropping deep, you can see Nunes come from the left and play almost as a striker, just running from the left side. And you kind of saw that a little bit for both goals. I mean, to kind of and with Everton, I think the main storyline was Ellis Sims had to start because there was no Calvert Lewin, and Sean Dyche. Everyone can talk about how good of a manager he is. I think Everton will go as far as Calvert Lewin will be able to play.
Mm. Yeah, I honestly I would tend to agree with you. I mean, I thought that midfield three that did so well against Arsenal. I thought that they would do better against Liverpool. You know, Onana, Gay, and Decore. But I don't know. They just really didn't. And I mean, Sims hasn't really played that much. The last time he played like regularly was a loan move at Blackpool, and he did really well.
Oh,
But
well, there you
you
go.
know, for like last year, he was back on Everton, and he didn't play at all.
Hmm.
So I think I agree with you, Ben, and I hate I hate for Everton to have to rely on Dominic Calvert-Lewin because he's always hurt. Like you can't rely on him.
Yeah, because I mean, the other guy is like Neil Maupay, and
Mm.
you doing he obviously he's not the same player at all, but yeah, it just, the way that Everton were able to attack Arsenal by going long and Calvert-Lewin kind of being physical, winning some headers, and flicking it on. You didn't see any of that in this game, and so it was relatively comfortable. I don't really remember Allison having to make a save, but to be fair, this was almost the reverse because what happened is Everton do get a corner kick, and the ball is looped in, and Tarkowski almost does what he did versus Arsenal. He has a great header, and it hits every part of the post, but it just doesn't go in. And I think it goes to Ellis Sims, and he tries to do a shot, and it deflects off. Liverpool able to quickly counter. The ball goes to Salah. Salah quickly plays a ball to Darwin Nunes. And what's funny is Darwin Nunes decides to outrun everyone on Everton. He carries the ball all the way down the left flank, and he finally does what I've been or Liverpool fans have been wanting or waiting for him to do. He makes the right decision. He makes the right decision to pass it to Salah, and he gives the right weight of the pass. So he floats the ball over, and he does it on time. If he waits or if he does it too early, this doesn't come off. But he's able to float a ball past. It might be Connor Cody, and Pickford is out in no man's land, and all Salah has to do is get a foot on it, and he gets his right foot on it. And within 13 seconds of the ball hitting the post, Liverpool was celebrating. Um, and then for the second goal, it was almost vintage Liverpool, to be honest. Like Liverpool, the midfield press forces a turnover, and then immediately the team transitions into attack, and yeah, it's led by both fullbacks. Robinson starts to move. He runs all the way up. He gets the ball to Salah. Salah kind of waits for or Trent Alexander-Arnold to do an overlap behind him. Salah plays him the ball again. It's a good way to pass. So good move by Salah here. And then Trent, without even hesitating, plays a ball quickly, hard across goal that I think Konakone actually could have done something with this. He kind of lets it go for some reason, and Gakpo is able to easy tap in with the back post. It's a good run by Gakpo to get there. It's a good one by Robinson, and but Robinson actually runs all the way forward, almost like a striker. And I think what he's doing is he's taking attention off of Gakpo. I think that people are worried about Robinson, and so that's kind of the reason why Gakpo is able to slip in behind there. It's Gakpo's first goal, so he got to celebrate at Anfield. That was good for him as well. But the reason why I want to touch on this is we didn't see Trent Alexander-Arnold upfield a whole lot this game. This is one of the few chances when we did, and it came off really a transition, really a turnover. And the reason why this happened is you actually see Henderson staying back. And so one thing that I noticed is you didn't see Henderson and Trent upfield together at the same time this game. And I think that's maybe something that Klopp has said. And so this is actually one of the few games where I'm going to praise Henderson. I thought he was actually pretty good.
Oh, rare.
It is. Now, it's funny because, I wasn't able to get all of my Cheerios this game because Klopp decided to make some subs. He brought on, Jota, brought on Firmino. I liked seeing that, and then he brought on Milner for Henderson. So you still it's not Milner and Ball where they're playing together, but he still brought he's if one's not on, the other has to come on. So that was
Yeah,
kind of
it does
annoying.
seem that
Yeah.
way.
I don't wanna see that versus Real Madrid, but I just yeah, anyways. But I did like seeing that again because in the past, that is what Henderson was supposed to do. That is what Henderson actually did. So I don't know if the Klopp's they had like 10 days to prepare for this. It was a much better team than what we saw versus Wolves, and again, the midfield was Henderson and Fabinho together, and I'm talking about how the midfield press was working again, how they were able to force Everton into turnovers. Everton had 6 shots and 1 on target. I don't really remember that 1 on target. Um, the possession was absolutely dominant, and, the XG was 2 to 0.36, and I'm saying that, that the midfield press was back, that it was vintage Liverpool again, and it was with Henderson and Fabinho in midfield, and the reason is because Badic was there. Badic was able to offer the legs that we haven't seen in the past.
Yeah, I would agree, and maybe a little bit more optimism too. With Jota came in, Keita came in too, and you have Virgil van Dijk was back on the bench. So
Yeah.
this is a good win against obviously Merseyside Derby. It's a great win, but also just to get some of these players back and healthy is going to help a lot too. I think because you've been talking about like you miss Jota, and Jota's back, so maybe they can kind of put together a little bit of a run of results now because it is a derby. I know Everton's not great, but they beat they beat Arsenal under Deitch, and I mean it was they're usually pretty compact and good defensively, but yeah, I thought Liverpool looked well, and having some of these players back is going to help them, and I think now is the time to kind of put together a little bit of a run and kind of climb your way back up the table.
I mean, yeah, that'll be funny if that happens with Thiago being out. That's not something I would have expected to say earlier in the season. But one thing I'm going to say, if Trent Alexander-Arnold can play this way, maybe so, because yeah, I've actually gotten on him a little bit for being I wanna say,
Two
basically,
attacking.
I've said, like, kinda playing in midfield, and in this one, he was almost like a 3rd center back. He was playing really, really deep when Henderson was high up. Um, but what was happening is, Henderson gets the ball on the wing, and so, maybe he, like, does a cross and, he hoofs it in. But with Garin and Gakpo, it's fine for him to hoof it in. I'm okay with that now. It's different when you had, I don't know, Firmino or Mane, in there instead. So that changes how I look at that. But 2, Trent Alexander-Arnold playing in a deeper position, I think I think that'll help Liverpool when it comes to build up, and that'll help him in the final third to get the ball to Salah's legs. So you won't have to necessarily rely on Henderson. You can make Henderson just to be a pressing monster, and as long as he knows that when Trent does go backwards for Henderson to just at least track back and be in that position, I'm okay with this. So we'll see
Yeah.
how bad this ages, because I think we'll see this versus Real Madrid, and so, I'll see how that happens.
Yeah, gosh, yeah, and that's a tough team, so
Camavinga at left
we'll
back,
know.
and he'll be overlapping with Vinny. So we'll see.
Oh,
We'll see
oh,
how this works because 'cause it'll be on that same side.
yeah. But we'll
Um,
know. We'll know after that game for sure, definitively, if it'll work or not. Because if it works against Real Madrid, it'll probably work against most teams in the Premier League. You would think?
and before Real Madrid, they have a big game versus Newcastle. And I think it's gonna be the last game, but Bruno Guimaraes won't be able to play because of that, red card suspension. So
Yeah,
Newcastle have been gettable, at least, the last few games. They've looked a little vulnerable. So you're right. There is a chance to maybe build a little momentum and change how everyone's opinion has been, as crazy as that
yeah,
is to say. It's funny how just one game kinda does that. I don't wanna necessarily get myself worked up too much because I do wanna see this versus Newcastle and versus Madrid. But another thing I wanna say is I'm not entirely sold on Nunez, being kinda playing on the left and trying to take on, fullbacks, because Everton, it's one thing to take on, Connor Cody and Seamus Coleman. It's another thing to do that versus, I don't know, Camavinga, or not Camavinga, whoever would be on Madrid's, fullback, for that side, right back.
sometimes they play like Militao, don't
Or
they?
Militao, or it might be Carvajal, I don't know. Anyways,
Carvajal.
so I don't know if this would necessarily work versus a deep block, because again, Nunez to me isn't really a winger, and Gakpo can sometimes still be a little heavy, but at least maybe there's just something that Klopp was able to work on in the training ground, because they were looking for each other. There was this combination play that I just hadn't seen in the last few weeks. I sometimes, the last couple of games, when Salah would have gotten the ball, he would have tried to take someone on and get a shot off. when maybe a pass was on, and you didn't see that. You saw a little bit more team oriented play, not just from Salah, from all of them. And so like you said, with Jota and Firmino coming back as well, Virgil van Dijk, at least available on the sideline. Maybe we'll see him versus Newcastle. It's hard for me to not have a little hope in him right now.
Yeah, no, I think it's good. Yeah, I think it's good. Because not only did is it a big win, but like we said, you're getting some players back and key players at that. So yeah, I really think it's a big chance to gain some momentum. But obviously, some Newcastle this weekend and Real Madrid next week in the Champions League. It's going to be tough, but if they can get results there, they're putting together quite a run, and maybe they can get some confidence in some of these players back. Because, like you said, they looked like they had their confidence back against Everton. So I do think there's reason for optimism, and potentially, y'all can build on this. But there's been times like this during the season, like what they beat Bournemouth in the summer in August, like 7-0, and I thought maybe that would kick
9.
off their. No, I know that's right. I thought that would kick off their season kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it didn't. So they've been kind of like start stop. But yeah, maybe this can take y'all, to some different heights now. Especially mainly because y'all are getting some key players back, and it does look like Klopp kind of changed some things. Especially with like Alexander Arnold, just pulling him back a little bit because he's great on the ball, but you know people were getting on him defensively, but it's because he's playing higher up the pitch. So if you bring him back, he'll probably be a little more solid defensively, and
I
it looks like that's what Klopp did.
And I like yeah, when you look at his average position, he is significantly deeper than where he's been in past couple of games. And and he's got such a good passing range, and he can still carry the ball with him as well. He doesn't necessarily have to be there. But
Yeah,
there needs to be someone at least in that position. So either Henderson shifts over, anyways. But yeah, again, but that'll basically allow you to play almost. It'll be a back three essentially. What would happen is the two center backs with Trent kind of being there as well. Um, I think that was maybe the adjustment, but another thing too, another reason for the hopium is Spurs without Betancourt, and after seeing how their back line is, I think Spurs are going to drop and at least be vulnerable to someone catching them. It doesn't have to be
yeah,
Liverpool; it could be someone else. I don't think United are necessarily in that spot, but Newcastle again. If everything goes to plan, they have a couple games in hand versus them, and if they beat them, I think it would be a 3-point gap, with 16 games to go, or so. That does feel
interesting.
that
Yeah,
does feel doable. But again, I'm very this is very homerish at the minute, but I do think I feel so much better after seeing the way how Badic is able to play. And we'll see
yeah,
because
he's good.
I'm not complaining about Fabinho in a game. I'm not complaining about Henderson in a game. I'm not complaining about missing Thiago. That is different to me. Um, now
Yeah, because that's been like all season. Those guys have been struggling at least at times.
now he is young. I don't know if he can play every single game. You don't necessarily know how that is going to work out. So you'll still need to find a way to kind of get around that at least. And then another thing too is getting Jota back is huge. Jota missed the
Yeah,
first half of this season. Um, I've told that story about 2021 before too many times now. I mentioned how he was able to get players back. He moved Fabinho back into midfield. Another thing too is he got Jota back, and Jota. Anytime they missed Jota, they've missed his goals. Jota will bring goals with him just by himself. So
yeah,
yeah, there
and they
is
need that.
getting him back is huge.
Yeah,
Um,
I think for me, yeah, he's the biggest one. Off the bench, he's the one that makes me most excited that he's back and healthy.
And, to be honest, the way that he was playing Gakpo was almost like a third man in midfield, at times. And what's funny is when Darwin Núñez kind of leaves that left wing spot to kind of run forward and basically become your quote unquote striker, that leaves that left wing spot for Robinson to bomb forward. And Robinson is showing that he has energy beyond belief to kind of make those runs too. And with someone like Bacic, he can drop in. And so again, there are ways to kind of cover a little bit more ground in the squad than what we've seen in the past, and you're not as vulnerable to the counter as we've seen. So again, it is just versus Everton. Everton aren't the best side, Everton are looking at a relegation fight, and I think I could maybe credit Arsenal a little bit here because I think their legs were heavy. They didn't look nearly as uh, as energized as they did versus Arsenal. So I think that kind of played a role in this too.
Yeah, yeah, it was kind of like what we were saying with shoot, what team was it? I can't remember. Oh, City and Spurs. It's kind of the same thing where Tottenham beat City and ran a ton, and then kind of were a bit leggy. The next game against Leicester is kind of like that.
Yep. And so we'll move on to Newcastle and Bournemouth. Kind of talked a little bit about them already. And this one ends 1-1 as well. There were a lot of 1-1s on Saturday. Um, I know the headline was Eddie Howe returning back to basically the club that I think he he took from the second division into the Premier League, and he had some success with them.
Yeah.
So
Oh, definitely.
um,
Yeah, they were fun to watch too in the Premier League with Hal.
they were, yeah. And so that was I think the fans actually did kind of give him a standing ovation too. So that's good to see. No bad blood there. And then, they it's easy to clap after your team actually gets one on your old manager that left you. So
Yeah,
that
true.
maybe played a role in well as well. But yeah, it's 1-1, and they get the first goal. And so I mean, the Newcastle 11 was pretty much the same thing that we've seen. So 4-3-3 with Trippier, Sharp, Botman, and Byrne. One of the reasons why Newcastle had such a good season is they have been able to play a consistent back line. We'll get to Trippier later on. He had play of the game. And then maybe the one change was Willock, Longstaff, and Joe Linton. Again, you're missing Bruno Gomes, so you're playing Sean Longstaff in a different position than where he would like to be. And in this game, they lost Joe Willock kind of early in the game. And one of the changes that was brought on is they played Anthony Gordon in that midfield 8 kind of spot. They didn't play him further up. I thought that was interesting.
Hmm.
And
Yeah, and
then
he played pretty well, I thought.
I agree. I thought he did too.
He looked exciting. Yeah.
And then Almiron Ishak and Alan St. Maxian. No Callum Wilson this game because some kind of hamstring issue. Now, if Callum Wilson wasn't able to play versus Liverpool in that first game, and I think Ishak played and actually did really well. I think that was his debut. So that'll maybe be something to see at least going forward. And then for Bournemouth, um, I guess the lineup news was Solanke kind of playing over Semenyo. Yeah, and then most of the signings were in. So Hamid Traore was played, and Watatara, who again I think looked very bright. I think he had an assist, and then Anthony played on that wing side, and I thought he looked pretty good.
Yeah, both wingers are fun. Witara is a really fun player, and Anthony's too. Like I think he's kind of underrated. I think there are some bigger clubs in January kind of going after him. So yeah, I think he's a big player too for Bournemouth.
And I mean, good for is it Nathan? No, not Nathan Jones.
Gar-
The manager
Gary O'Neill,
Gary O'Neill.
yeah, Gary O'Neill.
I
Very
mean,
forgettable name, I feel like,
I
but
mean, well, I don't want to necessarily, sell him short because he hasn't been given the easiest job. Now he has been given some players now. They look good, to be honest. This is a couple games in a row where they've looked good. And so yeah, because they looked good versus Brighton, I thought. Um, and yeah, I mean they get the first goal. It comes up from corner kick. It's good delivery, but Watatara is again the guy that kind of heads it to the back post where Senesi is able to get it in. And then Newcastle get the get one back. This was an interesting goal because Alan St. Maxian basically squares it to Longstaff. Longstaff makes a run from deep and he has something that I think a lot of people have been criticizing him for. He has a good shot on goal. He forces a save, and the rebound falls to Almiron. But I think the interesting thing here is Alan Maxian keeps the ball in when it looks like there's a really bad pass, and it looks like it's going to go out of bounds. And then he finds, I think he finds Anthony Gordon. Anthony Gordon kind of plays kind of like a one-touch pass to Alan Maxian before they get it to Longstaff. But I think that alone unsettled Bournemouth a little bit, and that's maybe why you saw this happening as well.
yeah, honestly, when Newcastle scored that goal with Almiron, I thought the second half, I thought Newcastle would go ahead and find that winner.
I did
Honestly,
as well.
yes. So maybe it was just a case of like maybe halftime broke up a little bit of their momentum because Amaran scored like right before halftime, and maybe Bournemouth were able to like go in the locker room and settle down. But yeah, I was impressed with Bournemouth because I thought that goal right before half was just a killer for them, and I thought Newcastle would go ahead and find at least another goal and win that game. So yeah, it was a good job I think by Bournemouth to you know s- play well and get a point. I mean they need some wins, but the point kind of just keeps everything really really close in the bottom three. I mean I think what are they like 2 points out of relegation? I think.
Oh, I didn't know. I haven't
Yeah,
actually, I haven't looked at the points. In the table, they're like, what, 14th,
they're
13th?
they're 19th. Bournemouth's 19th.
Oh, they are?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I didn't realize that. Whoops.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm
Southampton
thinking
have
of
15,
I'm thinking of
Bournemouth
Forest.
18.
Forest are
Forest,
the
yeah.
for the team that's higher up. Yeah,
But
the
they're 1 point out of relegation.
I think
Leeds is at 19, so it was a good point.
I think, like, the main thing if you're a Bournemouth fan is you're getting the performances are looking good too. And so you're not just getting lucky. This wasn't like West Ham, the West Ham's point versus Chelsea, and I think that's a fair comparison because Newcastle are a top four team. This is a good team, and
Yeah.
Bournemouth looked every bit as threatening, at least when they went forward. And frankly, they were unlucky not to win this game. So we'll get to what happened at the very end, where it's maybe Dan Burn. Someone has a really first. It's Pope. Pope has a really bad ball, and then Burn has a bad ball as well. And Bournemouth are able to just run on, get to the ball, kind of close to Newcastle's box. I think it's Solanke that has the ball square to him, and he tries a back heel, and the ball
Mm,
basically crosses the line at least in every angle but like one, and it's because Trippier is there being Johnny on the spot to bail out Pope. But
yeah.
this was maybe an inch going across the line. And, refs have that weird goal line technology where the ref was looking at the watch.
Yeah.
And this, yeah, they almost got 3 points here.
Yeah, it would have been a huge 3 points, but yeah, I think the point's pretty good. Um, I worry. I still worry about their defense. They've conceded 44 goals. That's the most in the Premier League. But
Yeah,
they did go out and get Neto, and Neto's looked pretty good too. So maybe that will help. But yeah, like you said, at least the offense looks pretty good. They're starting to click a little bit. Especially like we mentioned, Witar and Anthony starting to turn things up a little bit. So I don't. Yeah, I think there's reason for optimism because, like you said, this is a top four team in Newcastle.
and they have
So yeah, there's reason for optimism. I think there.
and they have Marcus Tavernier, who they haven't
Yeah.
necessarily had. They finally were able to get him back, and I really like that
Mhm.
pairing of Philip Billing and Lerma a little bit in that middle. I mean, Billing is such a big body. He's like 6'4",
Yeah,
6'3".
he's huge.
He's able to offer a little bit of a goal threat, which we've seen. But he's quite good at pressing and just kind of getting his legs out there to kind of get some turnovers. And again, they have speed now on the wings, and this the Hamid Traore guy, who's kind of playing it in front of the striker. He looks pretty good when he plays. He makes good decisions. So and he's just a new signing, so he's probably only
Yeah,
going to get better, you imagine, as well. And so yeah, I do feel like there's a lot of reason for optimism right now. I mean, the XG was about 1.5 to 1.32. They had 11 shots and 5 on target. And 5 shots for they had 33% possession, but 5 shots on target for that possession, I think is good.
yeah, I think so too.
And the passing numbers are what they are. I mean, Newcastle 553 with 87%, Bournemouth with 180. But if you're going to get 5 shots for 180 passing, I think they'd maybe take that, at least versus a team
Yeah,
as good as Newcastle.
yeah, and the point for having that little possession, I think they take that as well. It's a good point.
Hmm. And so, eh, what what do you maybe think of Newcastle at the minute? Because they are, I want to say, a bit of a rep, but the goals maybe dried a little bit. Now, this has been coming with them missing Bruno Guimaraes, and I don't know if just that's the one like missing piece. I feel like the pressing maybe isn't necessarily there. Alan St. Maximin has returned. They haven't necessarily clicked because I think they have a draw versus Palace, a draw versus West Ham the last couple of games, and now this one. Did Alex say they have
Yeah.
11 draws? They have a lot of draws.
They have a bunch. Well, that's the thing too. Is like, uh, I mean, they're hard to beat at least. How
Yeah,
many?
that's
They
true.
have one loss, just
Yep.
one loss, and yeah, 11 draws. And I mean, their last 5 games, it's a 1 win and 4 draws. So I don't know. It's weird because yeah, they do. The goals seem to be trying up a little bit, but at the same time, I mean, their defense is so good. They've only given up 13 goals, which is that's crazy low. 22 games, only concede 13 goals.
Yep.
So I think they'll be okay. Um, but they do need to get some wins because everything's so tight. I mean, 41 points. They're only 2 points ahead of Tottenham, and like you said, Newcastle have that game in hand. So if Tottenham win, they could be bumped out of the top four. So they do need to get some wins. But at the same time, at least like they're going to be hard to beat at least, and picking up points along the way, it will help. But at some point, they're going to have to start getting back to like winning games if they want to stay in the top four. I mean, you just got to start winning, and I think it'll happen because they got some players like I think Callum Wilson gets healthy, comes back. He's kind of like a spark. Maybe he can start getting them going again.
Hmm.
Almiron had a little dip, but he scored in this game, so maybe you can get Almiron going. St. Maximin's back, and then Gomaris will be back too. So I think they'll start scoring again. It's just like, will they be able to consistently have those guys healthy? Because Callum Wilson's hurt a bunch. Isaac's been hurt. Alan St. Maximin's kind of injury prone. So those are big questions too. But I think at the very least, their defense and goalkeeping is going to keep them in games. It's such a solid defense.
And it's interesting to see Anthony Gordon played the way he was, because again, I thought he was going to be more of their maybe a wide option for them, because that's kind of how Everton were playing him. I do think the missing Bruno Guimaraes is monsters. Um, he basically becomes like their creative, even though he's supposed to be their defensive, number six kind of guy. When Newcastle have the ball in the final third, he's almost a playmaker. It almost seems like him and Longstaff kind of switch over. And just Longstaff, he scored. To be fair to Longstaff, Longstaff had an assist versus West Ham, and he scored, or he basically had an assist in this game. It's his goal or his shot that basically leads to their goal. But he's not the same player when it comes to being on the ball. And I think the problem for Newcastle is when you're playing this 4-3-3 kind of style. I recognize it because it's clock ball to me. When you're not getting turnovers and you're not able to quickly transition, and you're going against a set team, I don't really see where they find a way to break down a low block, because I don't, again, without Bruno Guimaraes, I don't see who's clever, who can pick out some kind of like clever pass. I think they're kind of
Yeah.
struggling at least versus that. So that's what I'm seeing. But again,
Yeah, I would agree.
it's just a blip, and it is what it is. I was surprised that they let go of John Joe Shelby, which we saw
Mm.
versus Nottingham Forest on the weekend, because he's not necessarily, a like for like kind of player as well, but he's tidy on the ball. He maybe be able to work against some kind of low block a bit like that. But anyways,
Hmm.
I mean, there's still reason for optimism for Newcastle. They also have that final versus Man United, and I'll be rooting for that game
Yeah.
to go into extra time for not nefarious reasons. Maybe PKs. Let's
Mm.
see 120 minutes on those legs for both teams.
I
'Cause
wouldn't mind that either. Yeah.
for both teams. And so, yeah, we'll because that game comes up maybe at the end of the month, and so that's something. Yeah, again, because Man United, that'll be interesting to see them in a final. I can't remember the last time they were in a big final. So they'll probably
Yeah.
take that they'll
Yeah.
take
It's
that
been a
game
while for them too.
they'll take that game seriously as well. So
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. It could be a good cup final.
I'm hoping so. Again, the first meeting between those two teams was such a dull affair. But sometimes
It
sometimes
was.
sometimes that works out. Sometimes it's not, like you said. It's not the same time when both teams play. And
Yeah.
that fits with the theme. It was a bit of that. We saw a bit of that this week when a bunch of teams were playing each other for the second time, and it was revenge for a couple of these teams. So, all right, we'll move on to Brighton and Crystal Palace. This one again wins 1-1. We'll get to this. It shouldn't have ended 1-1. Crystal Palace did not care about playing. They just basically wanted to get a point and leave. And we see that with how they set up. A goal from Sully Marsh, so good for him. and then a goal from James Tompkins, who was given a late Christmas present from the keeper, which we'll get to. The lineup news for Brighton was there was no Welbeck. Ferguson was able to return in the second half, so that was good. We were worried about him maybe having a long term injury. So it was Denis Uzlev in the striker position. Alex McAllister was kind of or Alexis McAllister was kind of like the number 10, kind of behind him. And then you had Marsh, Matoma, like we normally see. So it was Pascal Gross and Casado. Sometimes it's been McAllister, and maybe that's kind of the change that we're going to see without without Trussard. So we'll see kind of Gross and Casado as that partnership. And Estupian, Dunk, Webster, and Veltman. Estupian, well, we'll get to, was fantastic in this game. It seemed like Crystal Palace wanted to nullify Matoma, and they forgot about Estupian because Estupian was maybe mad at the match. And then with Palace basically went with a 4-4-2, and I think the idea was basically to just line up on the wings and just not allow anything, not allow Matoma or Marsh to kind of beat you on the wing. And what's funny is that actually happens. That happens with Marsh. Um,
Yeah.
no Eze, no Zaha, no Edouard. You didn't. There was no way for them to really control uh, the possession or any kind of shots. What was the shots? Six shots and one on target. Palace didn't even try. It's 26% possession. The passing was 169 for 78%. They were just off.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, the goal was interesting because Estupian basically thought he had scored earlier, and it was chalked off for offsides. Again, this is another. I think it's a bad VAR decision as well. I don't know if you saw this, but it looks like they drew again human error. It looks like they drew a line on not the last defender. And
Wow.
so they're drawing lines on elbows now. They need to stop doing this.
Yeah, because you can't. I mean, you can't score with the elbow, right? So it can't. It's not offsides, right?
Well, I don't know what they do when it's, like, cold and you can't. It's easy. It's one thing when you can do the shirt sleeve on, like, on a, a low like a lower sleeve kit as opposed to, like, a long sleeve
Mhm.
kit. I mean,
Yeah.
I f almost everyone should wear, long sleeves, these days. Maybe it gives you a little more
Just for
advantage.
that.
I don't know. But yeah, it's harsh. Stupien should have scored earlier, and then he gets an assist here. No one bothers to get tight in, and he plays a fantastic ball across goal that Marsh is able to make a back post run. That again, Tyreek Mitchell is just kind of caught napping.
Mhm.
We saw that.
Yeah, that was.
We saw that kind of goal a little bit this weekend.
Yeah, we did kind of. Weird.
Yeah,
But I
similar.
mean, you just can't. You can't like switch off for a second in the Premier League, or else a goal will happen. And Tyreek Mitchell switched off for a second, and they got scored on.
Because I can think that the Arsenal game, and I can think of Gakpo's goal. And then with Brighton, I don't want to necessarily go against a player. I think I've shared my thoughts on Sanchez before. It's a gift. He just drops it. The only thing I can think of is sometimes you actually do see keepers that never take this chance. They punch it all the time, and you wonder
Mhm.
why don't you try to catch it? Maybe this is it. I can't.
I think so. Yeah,
Um, but he
because
just.
if there's just people around you, you just don't want to take that chance.
I mean, it's just a free kick. The ball is kind of looped up, and he. There's really no one near him either. It's not like someone's like kind of close trying to get a header. He just he just kind of drops the ball and it falls to Tompkins, and it's a really easy finish for Tompkins. But another thing that was kind of negative was this comes from a free kick because Ferguson is trying to buy a foul. Ferguson comes on in the second half, so maybe he's a little rusty, and he's trying to flop and he tries to buy a foul and he loses the ball, and that's when Webster commits a foul after that. So there's no reason for even the free kick to happen. And
Yeah.
then yeah, it was just one of those days for Sanchez. And again, Sanchez is a good keeper when it comes to the shot stopping. It's just sometimes he has a mistake in him, and it is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think you last year you were saying that about Sanchez too. Like he's a good keeper, and he was on the Spanish World Cup team. But
Mhm.
yeah, he does every once in a while make a mistake, and it kind of stinks that it lose some points. But
It
that's gonna
does.
happen. I mean, not everyone's like goalkeepers aren't perfect. They're not gonna save everything and never make a mistake.
And to be honest, if Palace didn't have the points, already kind of tacked on that they did or that they do, I think I'd be worried about them.
Mhm.
Because I don't think their run of form has been great. Their performances aren't great. There've been a number of them
Yeah,
that kind of look like
they haven't
this.
been they haven't been playing like last year. Maybe that's Gallagher not having Gallagher, but yeah, they definitely have not been. They haven't taken like another step forward under Vieira, like we thought they would, because they were pretty solid last year. It seems like they kind of took a step back.
It's just one of those where it's like it feels like they're a mid-table team, and they've kind of hey, they're fine. They're safe. There's not really a ton for them to play with. To be
Yeah,
honest, when we did our little top 10 or we did our rundown, I didn't really talk about Palace much because I kind of assumed that's where they are anyways.
yeah,
So maybe that'll be it. I feel like if I don't want to necessarily go at Vieira, but I just wish that there was a way for him to d- they don't have a way to do anything with the ball. It seems like the idea is just kind of get it to Eze, get it to Zaha, maybe find Edward, and maybe you kind of get lucky when you're outplayed with 70% of the game. Um,
yeah,
they don't have a
and
way
it's
to
worked
they don't
sometimes.
have a way to control the game, and it's weird because like you said last year, I thought they were more of a possession side, um, and it's just
Yeah,
that
I guess it's Gallagher. I mean, can't blame Chelsea for keeping him after the season he had, but I really wish Palace had gotten him,
it's a
because
shame.
I think.
I agree too.
Yeah, because they were looking good. I don't know, and he was amazing to watch. And now he doesn't play as much for Chelsea, and you kind of see like a little bit of that, his form dipping, maybe a little of his confidence dipping, because he's not playing every game. And when he was at Palace, and he was amazing to watch. And now we're kind of deprived of that, I feel like.
Yep. And so we'll move on to Fulham and Nottingham Forest, and this one ends 2-0 to Fulham with a goal of the week. I want to say from Willian. And that was spectacular. And then Solomon was able to get their second. With Fulham, another theme I think we can say is you're starting teams that are able to play a consistent back line. I think are having good seasons. And so Tade, Diop, Ream, and Robinson it feels like it's the same week. It's the same lineup every single week for them for that back line. I think that's led to consistent results.
Yeah,
And then
definitely.
Reed and Paulinho, and then Reed, Pereira, William, Mitrovic. There wasn't really a different change. And then with Forest the absolute opposite. Forest have to do a
Yeah,
different lineup every single game. And unfortunately for them, maybe the one consistent they had was when Bolly was playing. He was doing really well. They lost him to a hamstring in this game. They lost they to two center backs in the first like 6 minutes in the game to hamstrings. So you already had to make changes to the back line. And I think at least in that second goal, you saw a team playing with a back line that had never played together before. And
yeah.
so that's
Oh,
just that's
100%.
unfortunate for them.
Yeah, well, that's like where they're lacking too, because they do have a lot of attacking players, like a lot of guys on the bench that they don't even play, but not too many like center backs. So it's really like the worst area to take entries for them.
It
I feel
really
like.
is. Yeah. Especially losing Boley because I thought Boley had come in and kind of stabilized things a little bit. Now they do have Navas, who also had some saves in this game as well. I don't know how much he can save them, but if they're going to lose Boley for a little bit, they might get dropped back into a little bit of a fight. Because they're
Yeah,
fine points
possibly.
wise, or they're fine table wise. I don't think they're fine points wise. I don't think they're safe yet. Um,
Yeah, 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 definitely.
and then,
Ugh.
we gotta talk about the Willian goal. I mean, it's just kind of a free kick, and the ball is, like, played to him. First, he heads it to Mitrovic. His shot's kind of, and that shot's blocked. The ball then finds William again, and, he decides to I think I wrote, he decides to skateboard against the Forest defender. Because what he does first he, like, acts like he's gonna run to the touchline, then he stops on a dime, shifts the ball to his left foot, and then he errors a perfect shot. This is FIFA-like into the top corner of the net. And the reason why it's perfect is because Forrest have a defender on the back post, and he's trying to jump to stop this shot from going in, and he can't get there. It's just it was a worldie.
Yeah, it was great. It was like vintage Willian, which is unbelievable, because like, I mean, he just didn't do anything at Arsenal, and he went back to like Brazil and didn't
He
do
really
anything.
didn't. I thought he was done.
And now he's just like he's even older, and now he's playing like amazing. It's crazy.
He's got quick feet for someone that's old too. I mean,
He does,
he's
yeah,
able
yeah.
to, and he's not just trying to play back. He's able to make runs ahead. He's offering width. He's offering a wide option. I didn't see any of this coming, to be honest.
No, me neither. Yeah, I don't think many people did.
For the money, we keep talking about signing of the year. Whatever they, I don't think they paid a whole lot for him. Maybe he's signing of the year, at least for the value.
Yeah, they couldn't have. Yeah, they couldn't have paid him much. Yeah, I would agree. It's crazy.
And then we'll move on to the second goal because it took a while for Fulham to get that second goal. Forest didn't really offer a ton themselves. There was one where they forced Leno to kind of make a save. I think off a header, but Solomon uh, basically again it's a quick layoff by sub Wilson that comes on and he finds Tete. Tete is able to run on the ball and Tete in space is quite has shown himself to be quite good. He carries the ball upfield and then he picks out at Pereira and then Pereira draws a couple guys onto him. I think it's Sergio Aurier that basically leaves his man to run at Pereira, and Pereira does a really good job to see that, and he slips the ball to Solomon, who's wide open, and Solomon picks his spot and scores. There's really nothing. I don't think there's anything Novice can do here.
No,
And again,
brilliant shot.
Serge Aurier leaves his man to go out to Pereira. There's another guy that's running to Pereira, and that's why I said this looked like a team that was playing with defenders that didn't know what each other liked doing. Any communication didn't seem to be there, and that's because they were. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
And, Fulham were on a little bit of a scoreless drought, and so, I mean, they didn't fly in this game. It was 16 shots and 3 on target. Mitrovic had a chance to maybe score. He sort of he had a forced a really good save on Navas. But Forest 10 shots and 1 on target. They brought in Chris Wood, and Chris Wood really did nothing. So
Yeah.
still think, I mean, the passing was good for Forest with 314 with 77% accuracy. A couple teams that are near them aren't able to get anything near that. That's double what they were able to do. So that's
Yeah.
interesting. At least starting to see them control the ball a little bit better. But yeah, it just felt like there was only one team that was trying to win it and one team that was going to win it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It looks like Mitrovic is a little bit of a goal drought too, which isn't a bad thing. That you can score without him really. Because it's just a little blip. He'll come good into the goals again. Yeah, it's important for other people to score, and Mitrovic doesn't have to do all the scoring himself.
Yeah, and to touch a little bit more on William again, frankly, this is I haven't necessarily heard this kind of take, and maybe it's a little USA talking. I think he loves playing with someone like Anthony Robinson, and the way that Fulham kind of play with more defensive-minded defenders. I think when Robinson goes up, Harrison Reed or Polina are actually fine at running back and to cover. So that's a reason why they're not really cut up on transitions. But Robinson's always able to offer William an overlap run. And I think that's, helping out as well. Rex, are you there? Doesn't look like it. Uh, and so we only have one more game to go. Rex kind of froze a little bit on me there. I don't know if that's on my internet or his. Um, yeah, we talked about Anthony Robinson there. We've talked about Tim Ream in this, and I think another guy that's maybe deserving of flowers is Tete, which we talked about a little bit leading up to the second goal. Um, and the reason is Tete was fantastic in this game, but he was also fantastic versus Chelsea in that game last weekend. I thought, and so or I guess it was Friday. And yeah, he's been good defensively, but he's also showing what he has to offer on the ball as well. And so yeah, again, that back line is starting to be quite good for Fulham. Even though when you look at the goals conceded, they're I think they're like mid table, but at least you're starting to see a little bit more consistent performances. And to maybe touch on Fulham as well. Solomon was able to get their second goal. They've been missing him. He's been injured for a little bit, and again, Rex kind of alluded to Mitrovic not necessarily bagging lately. So any kind of goal production that they can get, they need. I think it's good for
Yeah,
Solomon to pop up, and it was a
absolutely.
good shot by them. Are you there,
Yeah,
Rex?
totally. Yeah, can you hear me? Sorry, my computer died. I can't find my charger, so I had
Oh,
to go on my phone.
oh, there we go. All right. Let's see. We only have. Oh, and well, do you want to touch on a little bit on Forrest? Maybe. I mean, what did you think of Chris Wood? Kind of. Or what you think of them losing both center backs? I can't remember a game like that.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's terrible because, like we mentioned, they don't really have the depth there.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't really. I don't know. I think they have a lot of better options than Chris Wood up top. I mean, I didn't necessarily like that.
Mhm.
But yeah, like losing their center backs is going to be really tough, especially like you lost both of them, so you're gonna have a totally new partnership, which is going to be really hard. I don't know, but I don't know. Bolly was playing well too. But yeah, I mean, they've got a little bit of a gap, and they do have like a lot of talented players. So maybe they can kind of like score more goals, and just kind of win some shootouts until their center backs get healthy. But that's definitely going to be an area of concern because you're basically starting over with a new partnership, and at least some of those guys have played. So it's not like you're just like shoving them into the lineup and they haven't played.
Mhm.
Um, but like it'll be a completely new pairing, which is going to take some time. There's going to be an adjustment period, so they're going to possibly have to like start scoring a little bit more to make up for that.
And it's 2 games in a row where I thought they were thoroughly outplayed. They were able to beat
Mhm.
Leeds 1-0, and they had, like, 1 shot. Leeds were just, I guess that was the last game Marsh had, where Leeds lost, but they were the better team, I thought, that day, and it's another game where we're talking about Forest, and we're not really talking about Gibbs White or Brennan Johnson, which I think is an issue. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
and
because
then
Brendan was starting to play well too.
Yeah, I think he actually got the goal, versus Leeds, and so
Mhm.
he just wasn't able to have fun in this one. So I think was it Robinson might have been opposite of him. So good for Robinson defensively.
Yeah, I think it was Robinson. Yeah.
And then we'll get on to Southampton and Wolves. We touched on it a little bit leading up to it. This game was the last for Nathan Jones. Nathan Jones was starting to have a little fun when it came to post game interviews. So it's kind of unfortunate to kind of see that. But after this, you
Yeah.
understand he had to go.
Yeah.
I mean, you get the first goal, you get it by Alvarez or Alcaraz, and he's been a new signing that they've brought in, and then just somehow you also get the red card to Lemania for Wolves, and you're able to play up a man for like what 70 minutes in the game, and
Yeah.
you not only allow a team to score 2 goals on you, you allow the team to get 9 shots on you in the second half. You allow the team to have like what 60% possession against you, outpass you, and a couple. I mean, there was some luck in some of these goals, but at the same, a team that basically went for it when you didn't, they deserve to get that luck.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
And I mean, for let's see, for Wolves, so they started off with Semedo, Dawson, Kilman, Atnari, Lamena, which we'll get to that. I think that was a bad decision as well to give him a red. I thought that was stupid. One, I didn't think his
Yeah,
first
me too.
yellow. I didn't think his first yellow was a yellow. I mean, it's
Mhm.
he goes to ground, he catches someone, but it's like the first 10 minutes in the game. So
Yeah.
it's a quick yellow, and then yeah, he sends off. Maybe something has come out where he actually said something to the ref, but I don't know. He's just going to the ref, and he's like one of like 4 people on Wolves' team that's going to the ref. He's like the last one, and the ref just like signals him out. Like, what the hell?
Yeah, he must have said something because it was like first challenge of the game for him too.
Yeah, just ref just had it out for him, and then one thing that was interesting is again you don't normally see this, so I think this is worth kind of. We'll focus a little bit on Wolves before Southampton. Um, Lopetegui basically won this game by being brave. So he brought on Diego Costa. He brought on a striker. He brought on Adama Traore, and so he had someone that was going to would always have a lot of energy to make some runs, to basically just like run around like crazy. And then
Mhm.
he brought on a striker to be a target man to just kind of be a presence, and it worked. Southampton also helped out on this because Southampton played basically a back five. At what I have a 5-2-3-1, a 5-3-2. I think that's what it was.
Yeah,
With
5-2.
with Sulemana and, Apollo Onacho, as the 2 strikers. And Sulemana, to his credit, I thought looked pretty good. That's maybe the one bright spot. But you're playing a back five, and that didn't change. You're also playing Maitland Niles in that back five. I didn't think he
Yeah.
was a center back.
No, he's not. No, I mean, he's a defensive mid, I would say,
Mhm.
but I mean, I don't even know if he's that great of a defensive midfielder. Yeah, like I felt like at Arsenal, he's a better like fullback, honestly.
And unfortunately, he has an error for the all important second goal. I mean, to get to the goals, so Alcaraz does get the first one. It's just a free kick kind of looped in. Wolves can't really deal with it, and Alcaraz gets like two shots here. So I mean, the first one's deflects. I think it goes off. It might be like Dawson. He gets the ball back to him and immediately fires again, and it's low into the far post. I don't really think the keeper can do much about it. So
No.
yeah,
Yeah, it was.
it's a good
Oh
goal.
God.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really was. Low and hard is always going to be either a goal or you're going to really test the keeper.
And I mean, it's one of those things where it hits off the post and it just kind of banks in. It easily could have gone the other way, and then basically, like we said, Lapitagre decided to be brave, made his subs, and he gets rewarded with it here. I mean, it's a Bednarik own goal. A Bednarik should do better. That's worth saying as well. But
Yeah.
they have Southampton has a 7v4 when the Wolves cross the ball in. There's no reason for Douglas Costa to basically get this ball completely unmarked, and then for Adama Traore to get the rebound unmarked. You have 7 versus 4 in the box, and Wolves put 4 people into an attack when they were down a man. I mean,
Yeah.
Wolves were brave when they went forward, and again, you forced something to happen, and you got rewarded for it. And then Yao Gomez gets the second goal, and again, it's Wolves kind of just deserve to win by how they approach this game. It's another positive sub by Lopetegui, and this comes from basically it's a mistake by Maitland Niles and Sulemana. They basically run into each other, and then Yao Gomez is able to get the ball, go forward with it. His first shot is blocked, and again, so he gets a return shot to him, and he has a fantastic second shot. That again, I don't think the keeper can do much about it.
Yeah, and the weird thing too is Lopetegui has really gotten Wolves' offense going now, because their defense has been pretty solid all year, but they were not scoring, and Lopetegui has came in and like immediately changed that. And maybe part of it is like he's actually playing Adama, even though sometimes Adama's finishing qualities can be lacking. There's no doubt though that he's like a really fast and good player. So maybe that's part of it too. But I really like what Lopetegui's done. He could be, I don't know, he's kind of like comeback manager of the season almost, because
That's a good
this
shout.
Wolves team is dangerous all of a sudden, and we they have a good defense, or at least they're organized, and Jose Sa's a good keeper. But now, like it seems like Lopetegui's really getting the most out of the offense, which is what they were lacking. So now they kind of have, they have the offense to go along with, the pretty solid defense. So, and like you said, they won this game and they were down a man, and they were getting shots and getting offense, even though they were down a man most of the game.
Not just down a man. I kind of want to touch on this. So, I mean, the key stats. So, the XG was Southampton 1.6, Wolves point 83. Shots for Southampton was 12 and 4 on target. Wolves was 11 and 2, but they had 9 shots in the second half. They had 11 shots total. They had 9 in the second half when they were down a man. The
Yeah,
possession was Wolves 59% when you're down a man, 56% of possession in the second half. And then Southampton had 232 passes with 71% accuracy versus a team that you're playing up a man. The only the only thing I can think back, City did this to Fulham when they went down a man. I can't remember another team doing this. It's one thing for a team to like come back, maybe pull themselves up. Maybe they get lucky on a set piece goal to beat a
mhm,
team when they're down a man. I can't remember a team dominating a team. Supposed to be of like
mhm.
equal, they're kind of equal in the table, somewhat.
Yeah,
This was stunning to me, and like you said, Wolves haven't necessarily been that firing on offense, even though they kind of did Liverpool in last week. So, yeah, I
yeah,
think I
true.
think you're right to touch on that. Especially, I liked how you brought up Adama Traore, because versus Liverpool he came on as a sub and he got a little end product, and he's responsible for that first goal. So he's starting to
Yeah.
add a little bit more end product to his game.
Yeah, and he can kind of help you play against the counter too, because he's so like quick and pacey and direct.
Mhm.
So
Absolutely.
yeah, that'll help too.
And then, for Southampton, if there is one positive, Sulemana had a highlight. Sulemana had a recruiting video for like anyone. If Southampton go down, this will be someone that people should look at. He had 11 dribbles. He had a chance to basically score and maybe put the game away. He forced a he beat, I think it's Craig Dawson, for dust, and he forces Jose Sa to go down and get a glove on the ball. And if it doesn't, Jose Sa brings him down. That PK. Maybe that's another red card.
Yeah.
Samata looked electric, and that's the only thing you can maybe say about Southampton.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know. Maybe new manager too, new manager bounce will give him some points, maybe. But yeah, I mean, Southampton for me is like the team that's trending down maybe the most out of the week. I don't know, because they just, you know, just, I don't know. They should have done better being a man up. They should have at least gotten ahead and like gotten a point, you would think.
Well, Nathan Jones did that press conference last week, or that interview, and I kind of talked about it a little bit, but basically he was alluding to he hadn't been playing the kind of style that he was known for doing, because he didn't want to upset basically his players. And I was thinking, "Oh, maybe we're gonna see a little bit more pressing. Maybe we're going to see him be a little more offensive minded." And we saw a back five. We saw a back with Maitland Niles in the center back spot. So it seemed like he was completely lost for ideas. He was playing to not lose. You're playing. He didn't change anything. They were still playing a back five versus a team you were up a man with.
Yeah,
Why? That was
yeah,
crazy. That was
true.
that was crazy. And, even with a back five, you allow yourself when you have 7 before in a situation when a cross is in, you allow, the opposition to get, 2 chances at a ball kind of crossed into a box. So, yeah, I don't think the players are necessarily playing for him, and, it's curtains for him, and, they shouldn't have gotten rid of Hasenhüttl, but 2, it seems like they've maybe seen that mistake. And I don't know. Do you want to talk about the Marsh being hired, or the links to being hired?
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be done really soon, which is surprising because it's like Marsh just got let go, and I don't know. I mean, I agree with you. They should have kept Hasenhüttl. I don't know. I'm kind of my stock is low on Marsh right now,
Hmm.
but I mean, he has experience from last year keeping leads up, so maybe that'll help. Maybe that's what Southampton are thinking. And I hope Marsh does well because he's an American mainly. But I don't know. I don't know. I think he's better than Nathan Jones. He was kind of out of his element, I feel like. But yeah, I don't know. I think Hasenhüttl would do a better job. Has a little bit more experience keeping them above the relegation zone. But it's going to be interesting because at least Marsh has been there last year and he kept leads up. So he's got that going for him at least. I don't know. It's going to be very interesting to see what he does because I mean Southampton's another team. They have scoring problems too.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
so you can't just rely on Ward Prowse's free kicks. You got to get some goals from open play. Che Adams, maybe we've seen glimpses of him. Maybe he can get him going. I don't know, but I'm very curious to see how that hire goes down if they do get him. But it looks like they will get him.
Well, another thing that makes it very interesting is, Hasenhüttl is part of that RB, family, the Leipzig kind of coaching tree, or I guess operation, Red Bull operation, and that's what Marsh is as well. I think they kind of play similar football, so I don't think it's going to necessarily be that big of a jump for those players that played under Hasenhüttl for all those years to make that switch. But I just look at he's joining a better team, so I hope Marsh does well, because if not, what your take is going to be the proper one. It's going to be it might be the last time we see Marsh in a coaching spot, at least in that part of the world. Maybe he'll come back to the MLS, or
Yeah,
do
maybe.
something in an office. Because he seems to have good talent ID. I think the attacking players that he brought to Leeds, I think have worked out pretty good. They
Yeah.
and the defender they brought in, Werber, seems to have been pretty solid. It just seems they didn't do enough back there. But
Right.
he's going to have, his fullbacks are going to be Kyle Walker Peters and maybe Livermento when he gets back, or he's got Peru now. both are better options than what they have now. And I do think, to be fair, I do think they were missing Kyle Walker Peters in these last 2 games for Southampton.
Oh,
They're
definitely.
playing this guy. It starts with a B. Bessie.
Very,
Uh,
isn't it like very Various or something?
no,
I
it's
can't.
I'll be able to find it. And Bree, who they brought in. He's kind of a new signing, but he's not nearly been what Kyle Walker Peters is. So I think you're missing that.
No.
You're missing just Satakar and Bella Kotchap. You're not really seeing that kind of center back pairing. He's joining a better team. Sulemana, I want to see what Marsh plays with Sulemana. That's exciting to me. And
Yeah,
so
yeah. That's
I'm
something for Southampton to look forward to at
and
least.
so I am somewhat hopeful, maybe stupidly hopeful. But I don't know. I want Marsh to at least do something. I think it's good for
Yeah.
him to join another team and not immediately just try to be for that U.S. spot. I know he probably wants that in his heart, but I don't think he's ready for it. So
Yeah, well, yeah, definitely. Because I wouldn't want him after the last two jobs he got fired from. So I'd kind of be worried if he did take the USA job. And like you said, now it kind of gives him another chance. And if he does well here, who knows, a little bit of a rebound from him possibly.
And, well, I mean, kind of a last note, I don't necessarily wanna say all I had because I don't wanna, do too much, social commentary, but, it is we kind of do this thing to kind of, distract us a little bit, and I think, we're not necessarily alone, in that, just there are a lot of bad things, happening right now. There's that disaster happening in Ohio. The earthquake that just happened in Syria and Turkey, has taken, is it the number's like 30,000 people? Or 30,000 people at least are under some
It's a
rubble.
lot.
And,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just, it's important to kind of keep, the thoughts, in mind, for those people kinda suffering right now. And unfortunately, I don't wanna necessarily, do a political rant, but I do think, some of that didn't necessarily have to happen. I think, some, building codes were kind of ignored, and,
Mm,
I think, some regulations were kind of ignored for the situation
yeah.
in Ohio. And, it's an awful situation. I feel like we're seeing this too often. I think back uh, just kind of focus in America, there was a building that just completely collapsed in Florida, because building codes were just completely ignored, and basically the same thing happened there, and so it's unfortunate, and so we just wanted to get the thoughts out for that, and I don't know, just kind of end off with that.
Yeah, definitely. And it's nice to be able to just watch some soccer and not think about like the real world for even just a little bit because
Yeah,
it does, I don't know, you turn on the news these days and it's, all kind of sad and, down stuff. So it's nice to be able to like escape into an enthralling match for a little bit, watch your team play. And I think living where we do, we kind of take some things for granted.
definitely.
Yeah, yeah, and it makes you just be very thankful for what we have. And yeah, our hearts go out to everyone in Ohio, East Lebanon, and obviously Turkey and Syria too. And you can kind of tell like what buildings were either super old or maybe what buildings weren't properly up to code because it seems like some buildings are completely flattened and then others like look almost untouched.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I mean, the one good thing is hopefully, like Turkey, Syria will build better buildings to withstand those earthquakes because that's what tends to happen. Is they kind of you learn from your mistakes. I know like some earthquakes a couple 100 years ago just like leveled places out west, and then they rebuild better, stronger buildings so they can withstand the earthquake. So I don't know. Maybe hopefully that will happen, but it still is really sad to see. And I'm just glad that we can just talk about football and kind of not not think about that stuff because
Yeah,
it really is. It's hard to watch too.
it really is. I mean, to kind of just focus on the Turkey and Syria one. I mean, it did kind of show up in the football coverage because was it Newcastle and Bournemouth? Christian Natsu. I think he played for both clubs.
Huh.
And apparently his whereabouts are still kind of unknown because it's not just
Oh,
because they have football clubs in Turkey as well. And so just it was a disaster that kind of hit just everyone in class and like it didn't change or it didn't matter what kind of class you were in. It just
Right.
yeah
Yeah,
yeah
absolutely.
yeah. Just wanted to kind of end with that. We don't do a ton of social commentary, but I didn't want to
Yeah.
yeah. Anyways, and so well that said, we had Champions League yesterday, Champions League today. Though I don't think a ton of people are going to watch the Benfica and Bruges and Dortmund and Chelsea, but maybe I mean that'll be an option. And then, well, I assume you're going to be watching the Man City and Arsenal game, Rex.
Yeah, I guess I'll watch the replay on Peacock.
I'll remember to not text the group and just be like, oh my god,
It's a
every
great
5 minutes.
problem.
I'm hoping
Yeah, because someone will.
I'm hoping it's a good game because, as you mentioned, that FA game was a little bit of a dud. So
It's boring. Yeah,
let's
yeah,
not
absolutely.
see that dud. Let's see Pep do something
And
crazy, and let's see Arsenal just kind of press like mad and force Ruben Diaz into 5 turnovers.
yeah, hopefully we can just kind of play with a little bit more offense than we have the last couple games. Maybe Trossard starts and provides that too. I don't know, but it's gonna be interesting. That's definitely the game I'm excited about. The Champions League games, not bad. Dortmund and Chelsea will be a good game, but this one's the big one.
I mean, Jeremy's talked about how he said that the two best players in the league are Norwegian, and we haven't. Well, no, Odegaard did help with the pre-assist versus Brentford, but I want to see Odegaard do a performance where everyone's comparing him to Kevin De Bruyne. We haven't necessarily
Yeah,
seen that in a bit, so good time to
yeah,
do it.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully, well, a lot's riding on his shoulders too, so maybe that has a little bit to do with it. But yeah, he's been a good player, and we definitely need him playing at a top level for us to win the league for sure.
And so that's it. We went a little long, but lot to talk about. So we'll be back to do basically the same thing, either Tuesday or Wednesday, and I guess I'll wish you guys luck, Rex, because I frankly some Liverpool fans want it to be another city and don't want a non Pep team to win it. They want Klopp to kind of be like the only guy to do that during that. I don't care. I'm rooting for
Yeah.
you. I'm rooting for you guys. So yeah, there you go.
Whew. All right, well, I'll take it.
All right, all right, and that's it. And I guess for us to at the reserve squad, you stay squatty
Stay squatty. Thanks for listening, folks.
and stop recording.